Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Season 3, Episode 2. We got here a very cool guest on our show today. But as always, I'm your host, Paul Dolsky.
And I'm Tessa Baker.
And this is... Oh, man. I don't even remember the episode anymore. But yeah, you're seeing it, so whatever. Let's go with it. I think it's like Haunting of Don Hileman. But Don Hileman is here with us to talk about a game that his studio, which you can correct me at some point in time too, his studio, Enyx Studios, that is making a horror game, which is episodic, which we'll get into more detail down the road in this podcast. But it's a Haunting Witching Hour, and it's coming soon on PC, PlayStation, and yeah, Don can answer that too. But Don, without further ado, how are you?
I'm doing good, and thank you for having us on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I just thought it would be nice because your game really caught me and Tessa's attention, and I think it's because of the name that you chose for the game, A Haunting Witching Hour, and then that teaser trailer you gave us. But let's talk for a minute about this music that we just heard. Whatever this is for, I remember seeing it saying when you sent me it, it said trailer final. So can you explain a little bit more about this?
Yeah. The music that we're listening to, it's going to be the music that's going to be in our official trailer once we launch it. But there's going to be a lot of music like this throughout the entire game. We have some amazing audio people right now working with us and working for us that are composing a lot of this music, and it's all unique. It's not music that we bought. We've actually composed all of it from scratch, so it's really exciting, and I think it adds a whole different tone and mood to the game.
Which I will definitely agree with that. Like, after listening to this, like, several times, I'm just like, I need to ask Don when I interview him, like, we're going to be able to buy a soundtrack to this game, right?
It's funny that you mention that, because we've talked about it a few times, and we're still kind of talking about it. I'm not quite sure yet, but it's definitely something that's been brought up more times than not.
Well, I'll be a day one purchase when I hear that soundtrack is on iTunes or something.
Sold.
Yeah, I am sold of this soundtrack already. But, so, Don, for the listeners out there, if you wouldn't mind, could you please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm the founder and CEO of Enyx Studios. Enyx Studios is located in Austintown, Ohio. We're about an hour and a half south of Cleveland, so we're in Northeast Ohio. We started Enyx Studios probably about 2 years ago, and our goal when we started it was we wanted to develop a studio here in Northeast Ohio, because most games are made out on the West Coast somewhere, and it's not common for games, especially when you start getting closer to like AAA type games or console games, to be made here. And so it's me and my wife talked about it about 2 years ago, and we toyed around with the idea, and then VR started popping up. And the way VR was taking off, and we were seeing it pop up everywhere, and everyone was talking about it, it just felt like it was the right time to pursue something like this.
Okay. Yeah. That's pretty neat. But how did you get a name like Enyx Studios? Because I think when I went on your Facebook page, it was called something else, and then it went to like Enyx Studios.
Enyx, yeah.
Like, I don't remember what the image said. I don't know if it was just like a mix. I don't know. Like, it's under your cover photos on Facebook is what I'm trying to say. But there's a different name.
We started off going as iPlay Studios.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and then we had a meeting with some patent and IP attorneys, when we first started the studio, to kind of get going on in the right direction. And the first thing they told us is you need to change that name. And I'm like, well, why? And they said, well, there's so many eye products out there that eventually down the road somebody may try and sue you for that name.
Yeah.
So we had already done business cards. We had done everything with iPlay Studios.
Ouch.
Yeah, so it was kind of a bummer for us. And then we sat for about a day or two, and it's like, what are we going to call ourselves? And we just kept going back and forth, just putting letters down on a page, saying things out. And then finally, someone popped up, Enyx Studios, and I'm not quite sure how it came about. And then it just kind of stuck, and that's kind of the story of how we became Enyx Studios.
Okay. All right. So, Don, for the first actual question that we got here is, how did you first get into horror?
When we first got into the VR stuff, I thought, man, a proper horror game would be amazing in VR. And it kind of seemed like the obvious choice. And if you think about it, you go to a haunted house, there's always a huge long line to get in. You go to a theme park, the lines for the rides, the higher and faster they go, the longer the lines are. People like to have that kind of feeling, that stimulus, that
thrill.
That rush. Yeah.
Yeah, the thrill.
Yeah, that rush. And when we started doing the game, we toyed around with different ideas, like, well, we could do like a labyrinth, and you could, be with the VR, and it sounded kind of cool. But then the horror came about, and I thought, let's do a horror game, but let's do it a little bit different than normal horror games. First off, let's not have any zombies. There's enough of those games out there that are fantastic games, but I didn't want to try and clone one of those games. Also, we wanted to focus on more of the psychological aspect of horror with this game, where it felt more real. Instead of relying on a ton of jump scares and things jumping out at you constantly, we wanted to create more of the psychological horror with this game, where you're walking down a hallway and you can hear the creaks in the floor, you can hear the building settling, you can hear scratches, you can hear stuff like that. Because to me, things that are a little bit more on the real side are more frightening than if you go way out in left field and get real supernatural with everything.
Or like if you go to like a haunted house, like where you're gonna get scared, rather than walking into some house and not knowing what's gonna happen. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that was like, before we even came up with the game, those were the concepts that we were writing down on paper. We want this thing just to be unnerving. I want people to be standing at the end of a hallway, for instance, looking down at the end of the hallway to a door and wondering themselves, do I really want to go down this hallway? Without anything jumping out at them, without anything, just get that kind of feeling. And that's also some of the reasons for the audio, the way we've been doing the audio, is, just to kind of set that tone. And I think it's different than a lot of horror games out there, because you don't have these monstrous creatures and everything jumping out at you constantly, and you got to shoot them and destroy them and use flamethrowers and stuff like that. We wanted this to be more like a real experience. For me, growing up, I think one of the most unnerving movies when it came out was the Blair Witch Project. And I think they did such a great job with that movie, because they never showed you anything. But you were on the edge of your seat the whole time watching this thing, just because of the way they did it. And I always thought that was kind of horror movie magic, the way they pulled that off. And we wanted to pull off a lot of that in this game. Well, we're obviously going to have things that are going to come at you and you're going to see. But just setting that tone from the beginning, where you're just nervous going into different places.
Now, can go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
I'll wait to finish
okay.
real
Go ahead.
quick. Well, I was just going to say real quick is, like, so what you're kind of saying is, like, not only are we going to be able to see stuff, but are we also not going to be seeing it, but something goes on as well? Like example, like a chair moved, or like something gets thrown across the room, and we don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. There's going to be a lot of that inside the game.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty much looking forward to this. Like, I don't know, Don, if you've ever listened to some of our older stuff before, but Vidget is a episode that we did for the season finale of season 1, and you can even ask Tessa here that she can say, like, I even said for recording purpose, so that it's out there, saying that for somebody like me who doesn't really get scared in a horror game anymore. I said maybe when I do get a VR, I can maybe try to find a horror game that actually literally scares me. And I feel Vidget can do that too, and maybe your game could do it too. So that's why I really have hope for the horror genre when it comes to VR, because I think you mentioned it before, is VR has so much possibilities where in a regular game you can't really. Well, you can do, but it won't be as effective as it would be with a VR headset on.
I completely agree. The thing is, once you put a VR headset on, you're in that world, and you get not only the feeling of immersion, but isolation as well. So, like, when you're playing a game on your TV, you may be playing it in your living room, and there'll be people sitting around, or your family's walking around. So you have a horror game, and it can be scary, but you're not in it. You know what I mean? You have all these other things around you that kind of takes you out of that moment, where with the VR, it's just you. You know, you could be in a room with 10 people, and you don't see them because you have the VR headset on. And I think that's what kind of sets it apart a little bit from like a non-VR horror game.
What's that word I'm looking for? Like, you're separating yourself from reality and non-reality, we'll just say.
Virtual reality. Reality and virtual reality.
Well, right, but I don't really want to use virtual because I know it is virtual, but and we're in the aspect that we're saying is like with the TV right here, like with us right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can look and see our bookshelf full of movies. I can see the posters and stuff. While in a headset,
inside the VR headset, all you see is that world.
We can see is that world. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't turn your head and look away inside the VR world.
No, because if you look, you're just going to see more of the environment that's inside the world, which it just makes the game, or makes any game really more better, because even in reality, you know, I can turn my head and see my windows and be like, yeah, see, I'm in the real world. This game has nothing. But then in the virtual world with the headset on, I can look to my left and maybe see like just a dead end hallway or door or something, and it's not the real world, is what I'm trying to get with.
It's funny too with the virtual reality, with what you're bringing up. Even things like shadows inside a game play a huge role with virtual reality, because
you got to get the lighting right too.
Yeah, it feels like you're in a dark room. You're in, a dark corner. You could really get that sense of feel where, once again, using the example of a hallway, where if you have a little bit of light coming through a window at the end of the hallway, but the rest of the hallway's dark, you could really feel that, where that's where the light is. I got to get to that. It's hard to explain if you haven't tried virtual reality, but once you do, everything we're saying right now, it kind of makes. No, it's tough to go back. It really is. It's just not quite the same.
No.
And then one of the things that we're doing also to touch on all this, to really bring in the virtual reality, as well as the whole feeling of immersion and everything, is we're working right now with spatial audio. And what spatial audio is you could actually tell where the audio is coming from, whether if something's happening to the left of you, behind you, in front of you, below you, to the right.
Oh, that's really going to mess with you.
Oh, yeah.
So, you were mentioning you were going to need headphones, you said, right? Because that's what's going to help or something. Like, I remember you mentioning headphones.
Yeah, with spatial audio, it's best to play it with headphones, because it gives you more of a feeling of depth where, okay, this is behind me. It's not just coming in from the headphones, but it's actually behind me or it's below me. The spatial audio will work also without headphones, but it's not quite the same effect when it's coming out the speakers of your TV or your computer speakers.
Right. And speaking of which, did I name all the platforms correct, Don? Is it just PC, PlayStation? Am I missing any others?
No, we're working on a version of the game for the PlayStation VR, for the Oculus Rift, and for the HTC Vive. Now, another thing with our game is we don't want to leave out people that haven't jumped into VR yet, so we are making a non-VR mode for it so that everybody can, try it out and enjoy it.
Oh, nice. I think I do remember hearing somewhere about that. I think it might have been in the same article when I first found you guys. And I think it was right there where it said a non-VR mode or something too. So just like, well, we just, like, this is before me even talking to you, Don, but I was just like, well, at least the studio is smart enough to do it that way to help catch more attention. Would people be like, oh, it's just VR game, but in this case it can be either or, which is good. So now everybody can, like you said, enjoy it. So.
Yeah, and we, when we first started this, we thought, too, there's going to be some people that are just highly susceptible to motion sickness that just can't play any VR games at all. Like my wife, she really can't do any VR games, even the standing ones. Just the graphics and everything kind of mess with her, and she gets motion sick. So we didn't want people that, that have that to not be able to play the game. So we worked real hard when we first began programming it to program it so that within the menu you could turn VR on or off and play it either way.
That's cool.
That also opens us up down the road potentially for an Xbox port as well.
You can leave Xbox. I mean, carry on. Yeah. Okay.
What inspired you to start Enyx Studios?
I've always kind of wanted to do work with games, and like I said, I'm from Northeast Ohio, so it's difficult to find a studio to work at designing and developing games here. And with having kids and everything, it's not real easy just to pick up and move out to the West Coast or move to where one of the bigger studios are. So what I did was I began just doing kind of freelance work. I'd find people on like the Unity community that were working on projects, and I'd kind of help out with it. And that kind of helped me hone in my skills. And then finally, me and my wife had a long talk, and I said, I really want to open up a studio, and this is what I want to do with my life. And after we thought about it for quite some time, because it's a big decision to make, we decided to go with it. But the reason that I started Enyx really was there was just no other studio in my area to work at.
Nice. And you said that was your studio was created like 2 years ago?
Yeah, we started all this about 2 years ago.
You must have been very quiet then for the past 2 years, because I think it was last year. It was last year when you guys first released that teaser trailer, right?
Yeah, we got started on Haunting Witching Hour a little over a year ago is when we really got started in it. Up until that point, it was more or less, let's figure out how this VR works, how do we do the programming for it, how do we do the head tracking, all that kind of stuff. So it was a lot of the under the hood type stuff that we worked on up until that point to just learn how to work with it in general. And once we had it figured out pretty much and we knew what it can and can't do, that's when we started really developing the game.
Okay. So Haunting the Witching Hour. Now, this is going to be your first studio's game, correct?
Yes, this will be our first game as a studio.
So, this next question can kind of fit with the one that I just asked, but like how or what did it inspire you to start making a Haunting Witching Hour?
We were trying to figure out what kind of game we wanted to make, and there's so many great options out there. We could have went fantasy, we could have went anything, and all of that would be super cool with the VR or even non-VR. But I was always kind of inspired by like historical type things. I'll watch documentaries on things that's happened 30, 40, 50, 100 years ago, and it's always interested me. And one of the things that always seemed to catch my attention, even when I was younger and in school, was the Salem witch trials. I think there's just so much history there, and so many interesting stories. And I think one of the things that caught my attention with the Salem witch trials so much was it really had nothing to do with witchcraft. A lot of it was just the darker sides of human nature, greed or jealousy, things like that cause people to accuse other people of being witches and have them hung. So it's just got such a great history, and I thought, man, a game based on like the things that happened during the Salem witch trial would be amazing. And to my knowledge, there's not too many, if any, games that really did that. And we wanted to make a game that was unique to us. We didn't want to just take something that's already out there and just make a cheap clone of it. We wanted to do something different and unique, and that was kind of what inspired the whole Haunting Witching Hour. So from day one, the story's evolved a lot since we started, but from day one, it's always been about a witch.
Okay.
Sold.
Tessa's already sold on it, but you were mentioning to me something about visiting an asylum a while ago?
Yes, yeah. Probably the best way to get into that is to just give a little bit of backstory of what the game's about.
Yes, that would be great. That way people can understand more of a better understanding of a Haunting Witching Hour, yeah.
Yeah, so basically the story starts in 1693 when Elizabeth Ainsley is accused of being a witch. It wasn't until the testimony of Reverend James Beaumont that she was hung for being a witch. So this all happens in the small town of Shady Hollow. So it wouldn't be until around the 1940s, 1950s when the Beaumont family would come back to Shady Hollow. They came back to Shady Hollow. I believe the names was Cliff and Linda Beaumont at that point, but I'd have to look at our story. There's so many names I lose track. Anyways, Cliff and Linda, they have two children, John Beaumont and Sally Beaumont. Well, one day, Sally goes missing. The whole town goes on a hunt, and they're trying to find her. They never find her. People in town start chanting, it's the curse of the Hollow Creek Witch. Well, Linda and Cliff Beaumont, they kind of grow ill with grief, and they mysteriously die, and that leaves John an orphan. Well, now it's 1975, and John's a grown man, and he's the heir to the mining business that his parents started. Wants nothing to do with the mines. He decides he wants to sell them, so he takes a couple buyers up through the woods to the mines to look at them, and John's the only person to return. He gets accused of murder. They find the bodies. They send him to an asylum that's on the outskirts of Shady Hollow. John spends several years there until one night there's a big storm. Power goes out. John and a couple of the inmates escape, and along the way, a couple orderlies are dead. John's never seen again. So now it's 2015, and the game will start with there's two teenagers, Emily Baxter and Ray Wilkinson. They decide they want to go into this old abandoned asylum because that's the stories with John Beaumont and everything that happened there, and they want to do a YouTube video because they think it's going to make them rich and famous. So they go in there. They end up disappearing. This brings up the whole John Beaumont murder case, all the controversy around it and everything, which catches the attention of 5 indie filmmakers who decide to travel to Shady Hollow and do a documentary on the Beaumont murders.
Correct?
That would be episode. Yeah, the filmmakers will arrive in episode 2, and you'll play as one of the filmmakers in episode 2.
That's Eddie, isn't it?
Yes, you'll play as Eddie. In episode 1, you'll play as Ray Wilkinson. And episode 1 will lead you into episode 2, and then from episode 2 on, it's going to be just about the film crew. They're there. They're trying to figure out what's going on. They're trying to uncover the story of the curse of the Hollow Creek Witch, and they come to find out that not every urban legend is just a story.
Now, you mentioned Hollow Creek Witch. Now, Tessa and I were actually trying to look that up to see if we could find anything on
if
that.
it was an urban legend or if it was something that you guys created.
It's something that we created.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, though.
Well, that's pretty clever.
It is clever.
Yeah. In the early days of doing this story, we had a marketing idea to actually start a real urban legend about the Hollow Creek Witch. And we had even created a website and everything and had people posting stuff where, we thought, wow, this would be really great if people really bought into this legend, but we just didn't have the time to keep it up and maintain it like we wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But, the truth is the Hollow Creek Witch was developed by us. She didn't really exist, or there's no real urban legend.
She's a clever fabrication of your own design. Which,
yes.
Which, when Paul and I were reading about it, we on the site, we were actually like, wow, is this something that's real, or is this something that they created? So we went and we actually started like looking it up and trying to research it and stuff. And all I could find was that it was a backstory, and I was like, well, wow, if this was like actually something like a real urban legend, holy crap, because it's just that good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tried passing it off as a real urban legend. Like I said, we just didn't have the manpower or time to really develop a urban legend that would spread. But it was a thought, and kind of the inspiration behind doing that was, once again, it goes back to the Blair Witch Project. Mm-hmm. That movie, the marketing they did on that movie was amazing, because when I was younger and that movie came out, we all went to the theaters to see it because we thought it was real. We thought this was real footage that was found of these kids that something happened to, and it was marketing genius on their part. It really was, and we were trying to do the same thing, and we just couldn't pull it off properly.
And that tends to happen. But I was going to say, since you mentioned Blair's Witch, I think it also depends on who you mention that title around, because some people just don't like the film in general because of its stupidity and all this other jazz. But I actually thought it was a very well done found footage, because I think that was, like, at the time, one of the very first found footage we kind of really got, if I remember correctly. But, I mean, either way, I mean, it definitely was one of my first found footage films. So I actually was wondering the same thing. Is this real? Is this not real? Like are these kids really still out there? Like,
yeah, and we've actually been getting more into found footage movies recently. Like, we watched one about, what was it, Slender Man?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, that's an interesting story, too, the Slender Man story. Mm-hmm. And I think that one, if it was redone in VR and done right, could be, beyond frightening. I really do. Agreed.
There's just throwing it out there. There's another idea for you guys.
Oh yeah. No, it's I think the Slender Man story with this big, tall creature type thing in the woods with no face, taking children. It's a scary story. It just is on its own. But if you did it in VR and did it right, where it wasn't like cartoon type graphics, but like photorealistic graphics, it would give people nightmares. It really would.
Oh yeah.
And I wish
definitely.
I wish I'd have been smart enough to think about that when we started all this, because we might have tried to make a Slender Man VR game.
Then there's another idea for you guys down the road if you guys want to do something like that. I think you guys would actually pull it off.
Yep.
I think so too. I think with a lot of the stuff that we've developed over the last 2 years, the techniques and everything, we could do a lot with the VR now. To add so much realism to a game. Like I said, the spatial audio, once you experience it, it is so cool. Spatial audio, it's a lot like what they call binaural audio. It's similar in terms where it's just, you could tell where things are. And you did that in the woods with Slender Man, and you could hear branches snapping and stuff in the background. It would send chills down your spine.
And seeing him with the tentacles that he supposedly can sometimes have.
Yeah, having the screen go all fuzzy and stuff when he's near you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of ideas you can throw out there with VR. Like I said, VR can have so much more possibility than a regular game. So, yeah.
And if I'm correct, I think the Slender Man's open to, you could use the story legally and make games from it. I don't think it's like licensed or anything. I don't believe, because there's a lot of smaller studios have made Slender Man games.
Well, I was going to say, I think even fans of the urban legend that
have done
stuff too. So I mean,
they've done like their own like short films and things like that.
But I think if you would really want to ask, you could probably ask Enyx Studios. I think is the last people that actually made like that Slender Man game. The
Slender Man Awakening. Is that what it is?
No. Darn, this is gonna like.
Nag at you.
Nag at me right now. Nag. Anyway, yeah, there was one game where it was called Slenderman Genesis, I'm pretty sure, where that was just one level, and I won't lie, that level alone is ridiculous on hardcore. It's almost like Slenderman just is like a clingy person that always wants to be near you or something. Like, it's just like, now Slender, go away.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely something to look into, and I think it'd be a fun project to work on. I really do. I mean, whenever you could get into something that's, a real urban legend, that or even the Mothman, that's another one that's got so much stories behind it and followings that it could be really cool too,
Slenderman the Arrival. That's what it was.
Yeah,
called.
Slender the Arrival.
Yeah,
That's
Slender the Arrival.
Yep. Yeah, I just had to get my mind taken care of since that was bugging me. But yeah, Slender the Arrival was the game I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that'd be a fun project to work on.
And I actually tried that one, and I was just kind of like,
Nope.
I'm like, nope. But the idea of someone possibly, even you guys, maybe creating something like that, I think that would, like you said, would give me nightmares, because like the way that he would be portrayed would be so real. It'd be like almost as if he could just reach out and touch you, especially inside the VR headset.
Well, what's really interesting too is I was listening to another podcast, and they were saying that Slender Man is not really a real urban legend. It was just made up, but it became quote unquote real, like the people made it real kind of thing.
Yeah, it took off.
Yeah, it just took off.
Yeah, from my understanding.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
I was going to say, from my understanding, because I did some reading up on that, I thought it was a college student that came up with that, and it just had a cult following and just grew.
Yeah, that's what I remember reading as well.
Mhm.
I forget why he created it though, but I think it was for a project or something. I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't either. After this podcast, I'm going to have to read up on it again, because it was an interesting story. I remember, I think they did some videos and everything with it to really grow it, and I remember seeing a couple videos, and they were a bit unsettling.
Yeah, I remember watching one, whether it be real or not. It was a news channel, and they were interviewing this person, I should say, where they were saying that their 7-year-old was told by Slender Man to to try to kill her with a knife, with a kitchen knife.
Yes, I do remember that. There was when that really started growing, there was a lot of incidents where teenagers were doing stuff, and they were saying it was the Slender Man. I remember that being on the news. Yeah, that was it was a bit creepy there for a while with all that, because they were popping up left and right on the news.
Yeah, and speaking of news and stuff, but Don, did you hear about those killer clown attacks that were going on last year?
Yes, I did.
Did you now hear that they're making a horror documentary film about it?
No, I didn't. I didn't, but I remember seeing, I think it was the photo or the footage of the very first one that showed up, the clown that had like the dirty clown costume and stuff, and he had the balloons.
Yep.
And it was really, really kind of creepy, that photo or that footage. I can't remember what it was now. And then after that, they were popping up everywhere. And I remember even the schools here had banned kids from wearing clown costumes on Halloween.
Same here. Yep, same here.
Yeah, because of that clown craze epidemic.
Yeah, because we had...
Yep.
Yeah, because there was somebody in somewhere around the New England area. I think it was New Hampshire, maybe. Maybe it was even New York. I don't remember 100%. But they actually shot a guy in a clown suit because they didn't know.
Yeah. I can remember Halloween around here. Even the kids and everything, they were a little unsettled with going out trick-or-treating because of what was going on with all that stuff. And I don't remember how it all started, if it was like a publicity stunt or what it was, but it took off, and then it kind of died real fast.
Yeah, that's why I was mentioning it, because now we're getting a horror documentary film about it. So I'm wondering if it was like a publicity stunt to kind of do like a marketing for this upcoming documentary. Like I don't really know how else to really word it, except for like maybe they did it to make it real enough to do a documentary about it. So
they might have. I always wonder too if that whole thing started off of if it stemmed from the one season of American Horror Story where there was the clown.
I think so.
Yeah, the freak show. Yeah, where they had the clown.
Yep.
In the first half of the season, because that clown, the makeup job they did on him was really, really good on that clown. I remember he was real creepy, and I always kind of thought, that was what the inspiration was when that all started with those people showing up in clown costumes.
Right. Yeah. So who knows? Maybe we can thank American Horror Story for that.
Yeah.
All right, where are we now? Oh, yeah.
How did you decide VR over a regular-based game?
When we started the studio, we kind of started it with VR in mind because being a new studio, it would have been very hard to stand out amongst the crowds of all the great games that were out there. And when the VR first started, when you're going back to the Oculus DK1 and then the DK2, I mean, it was popping up everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing something about virtual reality, VR. Even on Shark Tank, there was companies pitching VR devices, and this is going back a few years ago before these things were even launched. And I told my wife, I said, I really think this VR is going to be like the whole App Store all over again. I think early developers that are going to get in, they're going to be able to do some really great stuff and be able to stand out amongst the crowds and the huge amounts of games that are already out there. And I think, for a new studio that you want to make a name for yourself, it might be easier for your game to stand out if it's VR than non-VR. And that was kind of how we got into it. And that was the early talks. And then I ended up ordering an Oculus DK2, and as soon as I put it on and did a demo, I was like, oh, this is going to change everything in gaming eventually one day. Once it's done right and all the bugs are figured out, this is going to be a whole different way of gaming, not only gaming, but education, training, everything.
Right.
So we decided, we needed some type of niche just to get started and maybe get our name out there, and VR seemed like the right one to do because I knew, being a young new studio, there was no way that we'd be able to compete with the established studios and get our name out there above them. It would be extremely, extremely difficult to do that. And I thought, well, the VR might help with that, and then if we come up with a really great game that could stand on its own, that's the best way to get our name out there and get started.
Very nice. I'm glad you guys chose to go with the VR and that you're actually going to be doing a regular base game as well for those who suffer from motion sickness.
Absolutely.
And I think that the VR version of the game is most likely going to scare the hell out of me. I'm pretty sure that's your guys' end goal, anyways. So
it is. You know, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I've always loved horror, but before Paul and I got together, I was more of like a horror film junkie. That was pretty much my exposure to horror. And then Paul and I got together, and Paul got me into playing these horror-based survival games and stuff like that. And
like The Evil Within, and I tried to get her doing like Alien Isolation and that type of stuff. And
Until Dawn and stuff like that. Yep. So I've been gradually getting more and more into horror-based video games. And I actually find them really fun, even though some of them tend to make me a little jumpy. But like you said, that's kind of what you're hoping for, and that's kind of the point. So, but I think with this game being a VR game and the background of it, I think it's going to scare me. But I think it might scare Paul, but you guys really, really gotta get him good, because he has yet to be scared by anything, any kind of game or movie. He's very difficult to scare.
Last time, alright, I'll just throw it out there. Last time I was like on the edge, really, probably of like, maybe, I don't want to say pure fear, but we'll just say fear and terrified is, I had a long week of work, and I'm going to sound very old, kind of, for a minute, but like an ancient guy, but Blockbuster was still around, and it was a Friday night, got out of work, and what's the one thing I would do on a Friday night and get paid from work? I would go to Blockbuster and rent some movies. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what two movies did I happen to rent that night? Let's see. It was the very first Paranormal Activity and The Fourth Kind. Now, mind you, I've had a very busy week. I was tired as hell. And I had the place to myself for like the weekend or the week or whatever. So I was just pretty much just doing like what I normally do, just watch movies and stuff, like whatever. Well, let me tell you what, after watching both of them, being semi-tired does not work very well. So, yeah, if anything, that was maybe probably the last time I ever felt like fear.
On edge
was because maybe just from watching those two, being in the house by yourself, pitch black, yeah, it doesn't really help.
Oh, really? Come on, guys, please, just scare him just once.
Yeah, see,
I would love to see it just once, because Paul has seen me on edge and scared.
And I laugh.
And he picks on me and he laughs.
Her, yeah.
But like the first time ever of me playing like Until Dawn, like the first time ever seeing that Wendigo like up close in that freaking like binocular thing, like right up in your face, and I jumped like half a mile out of my skin, and he laughed at me, and I'm like, what the hell was that?
I'm like, oh, don't worry, you'll know, you'll figure it out.
And he's like, you'll see. Just keep playing.
That was such a wonderful game. I'd say what Supermassive did such a great job on that game.
Oh my God, I love that game so much.
Yeah, I wound up going back to it and playing it a second time because it was just that good.
The funny thing about it is, because of that game, I went out and bought a PS4 so I could play that game.
I actually followed the game back when it was first announced for PS3 for the PlayStation Move. So,
oh wow!
I've been following it since then, and I remember seeing the old trailers for it, the old screenshots, and then all of a sudden it died off, and I'm like, whatever happened to this game? And then we get that E3 trailer, and it's just like, oh my goodness.
I know. That was, when that came out, that's right when we were starting to form Enyx Studios, and we were looking at games, and I got to be honest, we were starting to play around with some graphics that we thought were looking pretty good, and they weren't. But I saw that trailer, and it was just disheartening. I'm like, we can't compete with that. There's just no way. But I was like, I gotta play it. I gotta see what it is. So I went out and bought a PS4 just so I could play Until Dawn. So Sony could thank Supermassive for one PS4 sale.
Well, you're more than welcome to add me and Tessa on PS4 if you'd like as well too.
Oh yeah. It was, that game was so well done. I really liked it. The graphics I thought were really good in it, and it was just an overall good game. I really liked the decision-based stuff in it. It was something. I never got into the horror games quite as much. Of course, I played some of the Resident Evils and stuff. I mean, who hasn't? But
right.
Silent Hills, played a couple of those. But that one there was a different kind of horror game, and I just thought it was so well done. It was great. But I tell you, the other thing, too, speaking of horror and everything, you're talking about movies that kind of freaked you out. I can remember now, I'm a couple of years older than you. I can remember when the original Halloween came out, the first one. I was real young. I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, and of course I wasn't allowed to watch it, but my parents were watching it, and I can remember sitting on the stairs looking down, kind of peeking around, watching it. And that movie gave me nightmares as a kid. And we grew up on the south side of Youngstown, and our neighborhood was a lot like those neighborhoods you saw in that movie, where we had sidewalks and stuff. And I swear every night I'd look out my window, I'd see him standing out there. But that was another movie too that helped kind of inspire what we're doing here, because the way they did that, it was believable. I mean, it was literally, the original Halloween was about a guy who was escaped an asylum and went on a killing spree. And what made it so frightening was it was believable. It wasn't, like, I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street was great back then and stuff, but it was different. It was more supernatural, demon monster type stuff. But Halloween was real. And when we started this game, that was one of the inspirations too that it came up. We got to try and pull a little bit of that in there, where it's frightening on a real level, not just supernatural monsters growing out of the floors, stuff like that.
Thank you for saying asylum again, by the way, because we need to backtrack to I think it was question 4 when I was asking you about. You mentioned about visiting an asylum, about making the game, and then we kind of started talking about the game, but I don't think we ever went into the asylum thing, because I think we kept going with the question. Do you remember?
Yeah. Sometimes I'll ramble on.
No, it's all good. I ramble on too, because usually it's just like, okay, I kind of want to see where this is still going, but yeah, now that you just mentioned asylum. So yeah, let's go back to episode 4 again. Sorry, listeners. I know I need to get better at this, but bear with me. But so let's go back to question 4, which was what inspired the making of Haunted Witching Hour. So Don, you visited a asylum. So what did you want to mention about that before we said, well, maybe it might be better if people understand the game first? So.
Yeah. Well, when we started designing a haunting, we wanted to have multiple locations in this game, not just base it in one location. Well, one of the locations that kept popping up is, John Beaumont going to an asylum, because they thought he was crazy with the murders, because he kept saying it was a witch that did it. It was a witch. So, when you're trying to design stuff, and I've been doing all the artwork on the game for the last probably 6 months or so, I wanted to go to a real asylum and just walk through the halls and get a feel for it, and get a feel for, how tall are the walls, how high are the ceilings, what's it look like, what's the sounds, all that kind of stuff. So it just so happened, about 40 minutes from my house, there's an abandoned asylum that they sell tickets to every once in a while, where you could go there, you could tour the place, but then they, on occasion, they have a thing where you could stay there overnight, and they turn off all the lights, and all they have on is the exit lights. And so, of course, me, my wife, and my one daughter decided to do it. And, all you have is a flashlight, and you're walking around this place, and it was just so amazing to walk through this, and you could, when there was hardly anyone there, so you could hear everything. You could hear how the old wood creaked under you, and, I mean, it just kind of puts you on edge a little bit.
Yep.
And, so that's some of the things that we did for the game. I mean, we stayed overnight in an asylum.
So nice.
But that asylum helped inspire a lot of inspiration for the asylum that we're building in our game. There's some similarities to the asylum in our game to that real life asylum, and then we took some creative freedoms and changed it up some. But by doing that, by staying there, you really got a feel for, wow, look at this place. The paint's peeling. Look at the size of these rooms. You don't really understand how small some of those rooms are that people would live in, that were
probably
in these
go
asylums.
insane because of how small the rooms are. Yeah.
Yeah. So, until you actually go and visit one. The other place that we visited, too, which was really cool, was the Ohio State Reformatory, which was the Mansfield prison. That's where they filmed The Shawshank Redemption.
Ooh.
We went there on a tour, and that was the same thing where they had the first part, which was like all the wardens' rooms. I didn't realize that the wardens actually lived at the asylum. They had their own rooms, their family stayed there, everything. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until we got downstairs into the actual prisons and you seen how small those cells are, and they would have two people staying in them. Because when you watch on TV, those prison cells, I mean, they don't look huge, but they look a little spacious, When you're there and you walk inside one of those and you could almost reach your arms out and touch wall to wall, and thinking two people lived in this little cell for, 22, 23 hours a day, it's just, it's a whole different experience. And we've done things like that because with the VR, we want it to feel as real as humanly possible. And that's another thing with our graphics. A lot of times artists they'll eyeball things when they're making doors, doorways, stuff like that. What looks good. We actually got down to the point of we were measuring the art we were doing down to the inch.
Oh, wow.
So a doorway is literally 6'7". The doorknobs, I don't know, they're, I think 32 inches up from the floor. I mean, we went into all those kind of details doing this, and a lot of that came from going to this old asylum. We went with tape measures. We're measuring, how wide are these doors? How high are the door handles? How high are the door jambs? And we put all of that into the game.
That is cool. Now, speaking of graphics and stuff, we'll go into that for a minute about I don't know if you can share this, Don, but if not, it's fine. But do you guys know as of right now how many locations players will be able to encounter, or can we not really get told?
Over the course of the season, since this is an episodic game, there'll probably be about maybe 10 different locations is what we're looking at. We don't have all of the seasons fully written out yet, or all the episodes fully written out yet, and I'll explain why. If I forget, remind me. But in the very first episode, the first episode is going to take place pretty much solely in the asylum. Episode 2, once the film crew comes, that one's going to have a couple different locations to take place in. And the reason why episode 1's taking place solely in the asylum is, for one, we want to lay out that backstory of what happened to John Beaumont, what happened that night he escaped, that kind of thing, so that the rest of the story makes sense. But also, being a smaller studio, originally we were doing the asylum scene was going to be a demo that we were going to put out. But just due to time constraints, money, and everything like that, we had to turn it into an episode.
Okay.
So this way we could keep on track and get things released. But Once we decided to make it an episode, originally in the demo, it was only maybe 5-10 rooms in the asylum that you can actually explore. We ended up going full blast and just finishing off the entire asylum. There's 2 floors to the asylum along with a basement. And just on the first floor, I think there's probably 30-plus rooms that you can go into and explore.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that kind of reminds me of, like, a couple friends of mine now who got a hold of me because I run a page on Facebook called Haunted Vermont when I'm, like, not doing the podcast and stuff. Like, this is before the podcast and stuff even started, but I run a page called Haunted Vermont, which I try to do posts about, like, urban legends and stories and real experiences from people on that page from our state, because we have a lot. And we actually were talking to Grant on the last interview about an urban legend that we have, which is very interesting because there's 3 statues of the same exact statue. But
Black Agus.
Yeah, the Black Agus, which I don't know if you ever heard of that, Don, that urban legend.
That's an interesting urban legend.
Oh, man, I'll have to send you it, the story and stuff, like, after this podcast.
But just a little bit of a teaser for it. There's 3 statues of Black Agus in 3 different locations, one of which is here in Vermont.
Montpelier, Vermont.
In Montpelier, Vermont, in a cemetery.
Called Greenmount Cemetery.
And the urban legend is if you sit on its lap,
you will die.
You will die.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And there's actually been 3 reported incidents from 3 people that wanted to prove to each other.
Yeah, 3 teenagers.
Yeah, that wanted to prove to one another that they were brave enough to sit on this lab. Well, the first guy drowned. Yeah,
drowned by his canoe tipping over and capsizing.
Yep. Another one fell.
And another one got into a horrific car accident.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the statue alone, like, it doesn't really seem creepy, but then again, with this urban legend, it makes you wonder.
Yeah, the eyes supposedly glow
red at midnight. And you don't want to say Black Agus's name 3 times at midnight.
In a mirror. Yeah.
Stuff like that. Kind of like
Bloody Mary.
Yeah, kind of like Bloody Mary.
Oh, okay. Wow, that does sound creepy.
Yeah, we got a lot of weird stuff. And
I remember what I was going to say that before I forget. We were talking about the episodes being written when you were asking about locations.
Yeah.
The reason that we don't have all of the episodes fully written out yet either is because what we want to do with this game is we want to launch it, and then we want to see what people are saying and be able to adapt future episodes to things that the gamers really want. Like if they say, this is a good game, but I wish it would have had this, wish it would have that, we can incorporate that into future episodes, if it makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Or maybe like a season 2 or something if you wanted to go that route as well. So, I mean, who knows?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I do see what you're trying to say, but if anything, I would just try to go with how you guys want to tell it, and then maybe after the feedback, maybe you could be like, okay, well, maybe if we do season 2, let's say, or maybe a different game, this is what people are kind of looking for, and then you guys can go off that maybe. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can kind of take it, so.
Exactly.
But yeah, that is very interesting. But as of right now, do you guys know how many episodes you're kind of looking at?
We're looking at probably 5 episodes for the season.
Okay.
The one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to go, like, say, 10 episodes and we're just stretching a story to hit 10 episodes.
Right.
And then the story kind of gets weak. But I think we could tell the story really, really well and have each episode be fully interesting, right around the 5 mark, maybe 7 episodes. I think going beyond that might just stretch it too much.
Right. But, well, I better ask this now because I bet you anything somebody's going to ask it down the road. But do you know how long each episode would be? Like, would it be played for like an hour and a half, 2 hours? Like, do you guys know?
Like a time frame?
Like a time frame per, like, which each episode's going to be like?
Yeah, we're looking at about an hour or so per episode.
That's understandable.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on, the gamer, too, because some gamers, they'll explore every nook and cranny in a game.
Right.
And, I mean, just if they did that with our Asylum that's going to be in this game, I mean, that right there could probably be, it could be 3 to 4 hours just doing that. But about an hour of gameplay, but each episode's going to be probably right around the $6 to $7 range, so...
that's not bad, then.
No.
Okay, so this brings up another question, then. Are you guys going to be offering a season pass?
That has been talked about a lot, and I think we are going to offer a season pass, but to do that, we got to really hone down how many episodes are going to be in a season so that the gamers know what they're buying a season pass for. And like I said, right now I'm kind of looking at 5, but I want to talk to our game designer and really get her thoughts on how many episodes do you think realistically we can do with this without it getting boring. So, but right now I'm kind of looking at 5 is what I'm thinking is the magic number on that. But
okay.
Yeah, season pass. I think definitely we're going to probably do a season pass because it keeps coming up. As a matter of fact, this entire week, it's funny you brought it up. That has been a discussion all week long. Should we do a season pass? Shouldn't we do a season pass? And we keep leaning towards doing.
Well, you can do so much with a season pass too. Like you could offer more too. Like, hey, you you buy the season pass. Not only do you get all the episodes, but maybe you'll get the soundtrack or make a theme or something. So, yeah, I mean, you could go that route too. So that way, like, people, not only are they buying the season pass, but they get more out of it, if you get what I'm also trying to say. Like,
yeah.
So
they get their money's worth, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, that, and the other thing we looked at is, okay, if we say we're having 5 seasons or 5 episodes and it ends up being 6 or 7, the people that bought the season pass thinking they were getting 5, they get 6 or 7, they're not going to complain.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, even if you were to maybe have to have one get bought, which Life is Strange kind of did that before they came out with the complete season, which was odd, because I've never really seen that before. But Life is Strange is a great game, too. I don't know, Don, if you ever had the privilege of finishing that game.
No, I never finished it, but I bought it, and my kids jumped on it immediately, and they played through. I ended up buying the first episode, and they kept hounding me to buy the rest, and I just kept forgetting. But they played through the first episode, and it was really well done, too. I mean, it was a good game. I'm going to get the rest of the episodes for them so they could finish it out. I just keep forgetting. I've been working so much that I get home.
Well, if you have PlayStation Plus, I have some good news for you. If you have PlayStation Plus, it's free right now for the Game of the Month. So.
So is Until Dawn.
Yep.
Mhm.
But
yeah, I did see that.
I think I know why they did that too, because we got the new Life is Strange coming, and then we got that new supermassive game that's coming called The Impatient, which I don't know if you heard of that, Don, but The Impatient.
No.
And oh man,
it's based off of the Blackwood Asylum,
which is from Until
Dawn. But this is before the Blackwood Asylum became ruins.
Yeah, this is
just like their glory days.
60 days prior to Until Dawn. So we're actually going to be able to get a VR experience of the actual experiment that went on in Blackwood.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So there is like a little minute and 20-second trailer on it.
And that's a VR one, too.
And this is a VR game as well.
Oh, that'd be really cool. You know, the thing about it, too, is I think it's great that a lot of these games are coming out in VR, because a lot of times people ask us, well, you feel that there's competition now that more and more games are coming out for VR, and the answer is no, because even if we made the best game ever, it's not enough to support an entire media. You know, you need these other games to come out for people to go out and buy the headsets.
Agreed.
So it's exciting to hear that, because I know when Resident Evil came out in VR, I mean, I went out that very morning and bought it. As soon as Walmart opened, I picked it up, just because I wanted to play it, because it was the first VR game, the first real VR game to not rely solely on teleportation.
Yep.
Where you can walk around and stuff. And that's one thing that's really important about our game, is our game's not teleportation. It's you walk around. You know, if,
so
if
you
there's
have
like
full
a long,
control of your movement, is what you're saying.
You do. You have full control over your movements, and we've worked really, really, really hard to reduce or eliminate motion sickness with our movement controls. Some of the things that we've done just to kind of make it more pleasing for people is we've gone as far as we've marked off, say, a 10-foot space in our office and had somebody walk that space and timed how long they walked, and then did algorithms on our controller, so 10 foot inside the game would take you that long to walk, so that
that's cool.
Some of the problems with the VR stuff is if you move too fast, like you would in a normal first-person non-VR game,
right,
it makes people sick because the graphics are moving too quick, and it brings on motion sickness. So the key is to try and make the movements as realistic as possible.
Now,
and I mean, we got a lot of math going on under the hood and algorithms and stuff like that to figure that out and change it and everything. It's a little more complex than just changing the speed, but we've tested it with a lot of people, and people that we know have motion sickness. Mm-hmm. And, you know, knock on wood, at this point, we're not having anybody feel motion sick.
That's good. That's good. What I was going to actually ask, since you brought up the motion sickness again, now you're going to have to back me up on this, Don, but you mentioned when somebody goes too fast. Now, would that be because the images are becoming more sharp, like sharp tone, or is it becoming more blurry? Like, I'm trying to understand this because, like I haven't gotten sick in the VR yet because, you know, I've only been able to really walk per se or teleport. So I don't know if you could better help me understand that.
What causes motion sickness, from what we've learned on the scientific level of it, basically is there's little hairs inside your ears, and as you move in the real world, they kind of vibrate, and that tells your body and your brain that, yes, you're moving. That's why people get sick on cruise liner ships when they're going on cruises and stuff, or on boats, because of the up and down motion. They're going up and down, and their eyes are registering that things are moving up and down, but their body's not, because they're not physically moving. So with the VR, you know, going on that ends of it, when you're moving that fast, your eyes are telling your brain that you're moving, and it's a disconnect because your body's not moving, for one, but also it's not moving at what your brain thinks should be what's normal, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So by slowing it down a little bit, it seems more natural, and it kind of tricks your brain a little bit into thinking, okay, yeah, we are actually moving. This seems right. This seems normal. Now, obviously, you can't do anything about the little hairs in your ears vibrating as you really walk. But there was a company that came out with headphones that this was about maybe a year ago that like sent a little pulse through whenever you would move in the game, and would vibrate those little hairs so that your eyes and your brain and your body were all in sync. So that's going to be interesting to see where that goes. But on in our case, we just tried to make it as real movements as possible, because it just seemed the faster you move, the faster the motion sickness came on.
Okay.
Were there any urban legends that were factual in the game?
No, not really. Just the facts of we took a lot of the facts from the original Salem witch trials, and used them or adapted them to the game. So as far as that stuff goes, everything in the game is inspired by true events. There was something that happened that was very similar to what happens in the game. For legal purposes, we couldn't copy everything exactly as it happened in history, but we used all those historical events, for inspiration to create the events that happen inside this game. But as far as the urban legends go, no, there's none that are true that I know of.
Okay.
But the tough thing about urban legends is you never know if they're really true or not.
That is true. We're always scratching our heads on something.
Did Murdered Soul Spec inspire different protagonists in this game? Did you get any inspiration?
What was that?
I said, did Murdered Soul Spec inspire different protagonists in your game?
Yeah. Basically, our witch, she was Elizabeth Ainsley was wrongfully accused of being a witch. And, just like the real Salem trials, it all has to do with greed, and I don't want to give away too much of the stuff that people will uncover in the game. But because of the way she was accused and the way she died, that just kind of let her not be able to rest after her death, and that's caused her...
It caused kind of like a curse.
It caused a curse where she cursed this entire town of Shady Hollow. And there's some other things that are going on, too, that are, like I said, once again, you'll discover them as you play, but there's a lot of different things that go on, and as you play it and you start, pulling through some of the story and you start piecing it together, it goes in different directions that you wouldn't expect. One of the things that's been so important to the game is not only making the VR a great experience, making the graphics the best we can, but also the storyline. We wanted to develop a story that has a really deep backstory, a story that, each of the characters, they have their own backstories of why they're there, why they're doing the things they are, and we're hoping that having a story that's this deep, that gamers will really be able to dive into this world of of a haunting and feel like they get to know these characters, and they get to know that some of these characters, they're flawed, they're not perfect people, they have things that they've done in the past that they're not proud of, that they're trying to redeem themselves from, and they have guilt, and they have all this different things. And it just, like I said, for us, the story was so important that I think having a story that deep, mixing it with really good graphics and VR and the spatial audio, I think it's just going to be a different kind of experience for the gamers.
Yeah, and you can't forget the music for the atmosphere either.
Yes.
That's going to set the tone for it.
Yes. That will set any tone to whatever's going on, so yeah.
We're really fortunate to have some great audio people working on this game. The talent that they have between composing and like Foley sounds and stuff like that, it's amazing. They're all top-notch talent on that.
That's awesome, and that's good to have too, because that's what you want. Which I did mention it before, Don, too. So let's go back to about graphic. Now, like I was mentioning before, you guys released a 30-second teaser trailer last year, which I don't know if you want to talk about that, but as of now, as you progress for almost another year now, we'll just say, but it's been a couple months, I know, but we'll just say another year because it's almost that time. But you guys have improved so much of your graphics now, and just looking at that one image on your Instagram really caught my attention, where it's just like, oh wow, like they completely stepped up their graphics compared to like what we saw with the 30-second teaser trailer.
Yes, that 30-second teaser trailer, I so wish I could pull it down at this point, but once you put it on the internet, it lives forever. That was early on graphics when we were doing the game. What we were trying to accomplish with some of that was we knew that things were going to develop over time, and they were going to get better and better as we figured out our pipelines, our techniques. But we wanted to give like the gamers kind of like almost like history, if so to speak, where this is where it started. By the time the game's done, this is where it ended. And we wanted to give them like kind of that behind the scenes look of, look, this is like an alpha version of what it is. It's going to grow. It's going to, in 6 months, take a look and see where it's at. And that we didn't convey that message real well, where everyone thought those were final graphics that were going to be in the game.
If I may say, didn't you guys do like a behind-the-scenes video? Because I swear I saw a video somewhere of you were talking about the game, about making of the game or something, correct?
We might have. There was a lot of interviews that we've done, and it might have been an interview with somebody that we talked about that. I don't really recall exactly, because there's just been so much over the year. I mean, we've had different bloggers interview us. We've had people come in with video cameras and do video interviews.
Yes, I find it. I'll make sure to post the link on the in the description of your podcast when it gets released, so people can watch it.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah. Our graphics, they've come a long ways, and what ended up happening was probably for about the last 6 months or so, I ended up taking over and doing the graphics. We've had a couple artists throughout the course of this game, and very talented artists, but their styles were different than what I had envisioned in my head of what I wanted this game to look like. So
now, when you say that, do you mean like you wanted it to be more like as realistic as possible compared to it's like a cartoon? Like is that what I'm kind of like
the direction you're trying to go in?
The direction
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, more like what you saw like in the Silent Hills PT or like Allison Road.
Oh my God.
We're trying to go for graphics more on that lines. We're trying to get as close as we can.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was about 6 months ago. It just kind of dawned on me to end up getting the look and feel that I wanted. I had to jump in and start doing the graphics. So I've been doing all the graphics since then. So the new graphics that you see, those were done by me. It's hard because artists, they all have their own different styles and techniques, and not that there's anything wrong with any of it. It just wasn't the look and feel that we were going for. And there were some other things too in that teaser trailer that we hadn't fully gotten into yet. Like we hadn't fully explored or gotten into like PBR textures, which are physically based rendering, like things like substances and creating textures that you have an albedo, which is your color map. You have a normal map, which is your detail, and then you do what they call a metallic and roughness map, which is what gives a little bit of gloss to certain areas, but not gloss to other areas. We hadn't even gotten into all that when we did that teaser, but we're doing all that now. We're using the entire substance suite by Algorithmic. So everything's full-blown PBR materials now, and that's why they look a lot different too, where the textures look more realistic. They have a little bit of a gloss, a little bit of a sheen. Some of the details stand out better now. But yeah, we've come a long way since that teaser trailer, and that was probably a really big mistake for us to put that out there, because we got beat up pretty bad online with the comments that the graphics looked like they were PS1 graphics, PS2 graphics. Graphics were horrible, but we learned from it. It was a good thing, because, in all honesty, had we not done that and had the gaming community not spoken, we may not have forced ourselves to explore different avenues and learn different techniques. So it was a learning experience. But yeah, we've come a long, long ways from there.
Nice, yeah, and I can't wait to definitely see more. I definitely actually can't. I know there's some screenshots, I believe, of you guys showing off some of the environment, but I don't know how old those screenshots are. So
I could send you some recent ones.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because that would be great because that way we could maybe compare the old one to the new one, maybe because I bet that has even stepped up the game too, like compared to some of the old things that we've seen. I guess is what I guess I want to try to say, right?
Oh yeah, and the other thing too to keep in mind is because this is a VR game. VR games are a little bit different than like a regular game. A regular game, if it runs at 30 plus frames per second, it's going to run pretty darn smooth on your TV or computer. VR games, they have to run at 90 frames per second, so they have to run almost 3 times faster than a normal game. Because if they don't hit 90 frames per second, that's when you get the latency and the lag inside the headset, which brings on motion sickness. Like if you've ever played a VR game and you went to turn your head and it kind of jitters a little bit, that's because it dropped below 90 frames per second. But trying to hit 90 frames per second, obviously then you can't do some of the things that you could do in a non-VR game. Some of the things you could do in a non-VR game is like one thing that everyone loves is God rays, rays of light coming through windows. Those are very, very, very intensive on the render engine, on the GPU, and trying to do that in VR is really difficult because you could watch your frame rates go, say, from 100 down to 60 just by putting a couple God rays in there.
Oh, wow.
So it's give and take a little bit, Obviously, we would love to do 4K textures on the entire game, and we have the capabilities of doing that, but it would never run in VR. So there's some sacrifices you got to make, but you got to kind of pick and choose your battles. Obviously, we want to do the highest quality as possible, and we redid all the graphics, and I think they're really good. Will those same graphics compare to the new like Xbox One X when it comes out at 4K, or what the PlayStation Pro is doing at 4K? No, not really. But for VR, it's like if you're looking at a mobile game versus a PC game, how the difference in graphics. It's the same thing with VR, where VR is not quite mobile, but it's not the same as like a full-blown PC game or PlayStation game because of that high frame rate.
Okay. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like I said, there's a lot of potential you can do with VR, and then there's stuff like you said you gotta just sacrifice, like rays of light coming into the window. Where if you were doing a non-VR game, you could definitely get away with because it's not putting pressure onto your eyes, I should say, because you're wearing the headset and stuff like that. But I bet
sometimes you could pull off a lot more of that. Sometimes the way our levels and everything are designed, they're designed for a purpose. Like in our asylum, you have a long hallway and there's like doors that break it up. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the reasons we did that was obviously because we want to do different things where you got to go through a set of doors or get through a set of doors to get to the next area, but also because you're rendering a smaller area, it allows us to push things a little further with like the graphics or maybe some dust particles floating around, stuff like that, because it's smaller than a big, huge, long hallway rendering all at once.
Okay.
So with the VR, it changes a little bit. You just have to keep the VR in mind as far as design goes. And that's where things get really tough with the VR is there's some games that were made originally in non-VR mode that were ported over to VR mode, and they're just not quite the same. That's some of the reasons. You got to almost, when you're designing the game, if you're going to go VR, you got to kind of have that in mind in the beginning so that you can design around those limitations.
Bro, that almost kind of reminds me of like the game Dying Reborn. The regular version game, like non-VR, is actually longer than the actual VR version of Dying Reborn, which is oddly enough weird. But I don't know if that's because they didn't want to do the full game, or as the levels progress, if it would become difficult, because there is some part where you actually kind of gotta, I guess I'll say run, even though you can't really run in the game, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that would maybe trigger motion sickness, and maybe that's why they ended up not doing the full game.
Yeah, probably that, and they might have ran into the same issue with like the frame rate. Certain things were harder to pull off in VR than in non-VR. And when you're making a PC game, really the sky's the limit for the most part, because the PCs, they're so powerful with the video cards they have now, the RAM, CPUs. Our game, I'll give you an example. Our game, if we run it in non-VR on a PC, it'll hit upwards to 400 frames per second. The minute we turn VR on and have it rendering to the VR headset, we're dropping down to around 100 frames per second. So those are some of the limitations that you deal with. And the reason for that is, with the VR, because you have two lenses in there too. It renders two images, one for each eye. So you have an image on your screen, then you have an image in the left eye and an image in the right eye, and they're all high def. And it just puts a real drain on the GPU.
Okay. Is that why sometimes some of the images kind of look grainy, I guess? Like
sometimes with the VR games you'll notice like games that have non-VR and VR modes, the non-VR mode, the graphics sometimes will look a little sharper, a little more crisp, and then when you put the VR on, they don't. There's two reasons for that. One, it's the screens in the VR headsets. They don't have the same level of resolution, sometimes it's like a monitor does, but also sometimes the developers have to pull the graphics back a little bit just to get those frame rates up. So instead of it being, say, a 2K texture on that wall, it may be a 1K texture just so that the frame rates stay at 90.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, good thing you are, like, explaining this, because I would have no idea what the hell is going on behind closed doors when it comes to VR stuff. Because, yeah, that makes it understandable, because I remember playing, like, Dying Reborn, and I could see, like, the graininess and the graphics, where I'm like, why is this not so clear? Like, they're supposedly saying it's supposed to be much more clearer, so you can like better see the environment, kind of thing. Which, don't get me wrong, some games and some demos have like top-notch graphics where you can feel like you're really looking at like a lake and mountains, like, and stuff like that. But then with other games, like we'll just say like horror games, like Dying Reborn and possibly yours, because I don't know if yours seems grainy at all. But, like, from what I've seen, you can definitely tell a difference between grainy and a much sharper-looking VR graphic-wise, I guess.
Yeah. Part of the reason with that, too, is the VR headsets right now, they still suffer from what they call the screen door effect, where it looks like you're looking through a screen on a screen door.
Right.
Just because of the pixels on the displays on them.
Okay.
So that'll change things up a little bit too, where on your computer monitor they'll look really rich and sharp and crisp. And it's not the developer's fault. It's just where the hardware's at right now. What's possible with it. Because I've noticed even our game, if I play it in non-VR mode, there's a few things I'll notice that are a little bit different once I put the headset on. And we actually didn't downsize our graphics on the VR. We've done enough optimizations where if we're using a 2K texture on a wall in the non-VR, it's the same 2K texture in VR mode, but it looks slightly different in VR than it does in non-VR.
Okay, yeah, when your first episode comes out, I'll definitely have to check that out. Now, speaking of characters and stuff, we noticed in your description on your site, and I believe it was for episode 2, when you're playing as that filmmaker Eddie, you happen to notice, we happen to notice that you mentioned that Eddie has like psychic abilities, like
it's like supernatural abilities almost.
Abilities, is that, or is that like, is he like a medium that he doesn't know? Like, what's going on with that?
Yeah, he's kind of like a medium in a sense where he could kind of get flashbacks of things that's happened in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that's unique about Eddie, and it has a little bit to do with Eddie's background and stuff like that. Eddie's one of those characters that had a checkered past, and he's trying to get his life back together and redeem himself and make up for, I guess, past sins, let's say.
Okay.
So that's why we ended up picking Eddie as the character that you're going to play as in the game, because his character was just so absolutely unique. I don't know if it's
story, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Yep.
Now, I don't know if in future episodes if we're going to allow you to play as a different character to see the game from a different perspective or not. We haven't quite gotten that far yet. But at least in the first, in the second episode and possibly the third episode, you're going to be playing as Eddie for sure.
Well, this is just now off the top of my head, but have you guys thought of maybe doing like one episode where we get to be as the witch, so we can kind of better understand the witch? Maybe that could be like the season finale, or maybe even like a bonus episode, maybe to like do like a. Like, this is what happened in the past, this is why I was a bit for the accused and stuff like that, and then how we could maybe see how the curse was actually made, or something like that.
We've always talked about maybe once the season is done doing like maybe a DLC package or something where you are the witch, because we always thought it'd be so cool to be standing there with the noose around your neck and having the crowd there chanting and everything. To start a game off that way, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're hung and everything goes black.
Yep.
Just getting that feeling for what it would be like to be in the 1690s and accused of being a witch.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that might be a future DLC. It's definitely, that talk's been around the studio for about 8 months now, eventually doing something like that. Who knows, maybe even in a future episode, maybe the future episode will start off a lot like that, because one thing with our episodes that we're doing is we took a lot of cues from popular TV shows like Breaking Bad and American Horror Story and Sons of Anarchy, and we're developing these episodes where they really kind of tell a story, but at the end of the episode they leave you wanting more, where you want to play the next episode to have those questions answered.
Nice. Pretty much like Life is Strange. I remember that was one game I would just like, oh my god, when's the next episode?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really cool, and it gives gamers something to look forward to, because we're kind of in a different day and age now with Netflix and Hulu and everything, where you could binge watch shows. And you could take a weekend and binge watch an entire season. Mm-hmm. I think for me, it's nice being able to do that because you don't have to wait. But I've also learned shows that are streaming live now. Like I like watching Better Call Saul because I liked Breaking Bad.
Right.
The fact that I have to wait till next week to find out what happens, I actually kind of like it because it gives me something to look forward to all week long. Whereas I've watched Breaking Bad on Netflix, and I binge watched the entire season over the course of a week or two, or the entire series. And it was neat, but it was also, I almost want to say, less satisfying because I didn't have to wait to find out what happened. It didn't build that anticipation.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, because I mean, you don't want to be. It's almost like you're also trying to figure out too, like all week long, like oh man, like is this person okay, or is this guy gonna get out, and then it's not like you gotta wait 24 hours and get your answer. You're literally gotta go back and think, oh my god, what did I just watch, kind of thing.
Yeah, it builds it up.
Yeah, it helps build up.
Exactly, and I think too, with when you're watching live TV and you have to wait a week to watch the next episode, it allows your mind to wander all week long. I wonder this. I wonder that. Could it be this person? Could it be that person? And I think you kind of get a little more vested in the show that way than, okay, I watched it. I don't have time to let it all sink in. I'm watching the next episode, and there's my answers.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've came across some shows too where like it almost feels like I could care less if I watched the next episode because it seemed like I could predict what was going to happen. So
Yeah.
so usually I have to find something else to watch because, you know, you're going to spend all week long, like, pretty much saying, yeah, we already know this is going to happen. So, yeah. Have you ever ran into something like that?
With games or with TV, which...
Both.
Yeah, there's some shows that become extremely predictable after a point. I think for me, I like the shows that really throw you for a loop. Like I loved Sons of Anarchy when it was on, and the reason I liked it was you just really didn't know what was going to happen, and it wasn't above and beyond them killing off a main character that you would have guessed, you know, would have never got killed until the end of the series. It was that unexpected, I think, that made that show so good.
Right.
And that's what but do you have other shows where you can say, okay, they're going to do this, and this person's going to get with this person, and they're going to live happily ever after, and sure enough, that's how it goes?
Yeah.
I'll tell you another show that's a new show, and it's more of a family-oriented show, but they've done a really good job of doing that where they throw you for a loop, is that new one called This Is Us that's on NBC. They have a really good storytelling. I was watching it with my wife, and it turns out it's a really good show, but they always kind of throw you for a loop where you think you know what's going to happen, and it doesn't. The total opposite happens.
Right.
So that's some of the things that we're really trying to incorporate into our game. You know, things like that where once you think you know it, then something else comes along, you don't know it.
Nice. Yeah, it's always good to mess with the mind, I guess, for lack of a better term, I guess. It's always nice to think that you're going to know it, and then, oops, nope, God darn it. But this next question kind of might be part two of, like, the last question that I asked, but, like, so... You already answered about how many episodes we could expect, which is, you're saying maybe like 5, but maybe 6 or 7, possibly, you're saying. So part 2 of this question is like, do you know how many, is each episode going to offer a new protagonist, or are we going to be sticking to Eddie? Because from the sound of it, from us talking, it sounds like Eddie's going to be the main protagonist, possibly?
Yeah, as of right now, he is. But we have talked and discussed maybe once you get into another episode, being able to play as somebody else just for a different perspective on things. The biggest key to that is figuring out how to do it properly so that the gamers understand it, they don't get confused.
Right.
Because the common thing is you start a game off, you play as one person, and you know, you go through that. With a first-person type game, it's a little bit harder to do that because you don't really see yourself. Whereas, like, until Don was able to do that because it was third person, so you saw who you were actually. Yeah, you saw who you were, and it was easy to pick up on real quick. Oh, I'm this person now, or I'm that person. So it all kind of depends on if it makes sense story-wise and if we could pull it off properly without confusing people.
Okay. I guess the next question is, have you guys, for studio-wise, ever thought of, like, doing, like, a Kickstarter to help get your game going?
Yeah, we've actually thought about that several times, and what I like about a Kickstarter is it's not only just, you know, receiving the money to help fund things, but also you build a big awareness for the product that you're working on. And people that get involved with the Kickstarter feel like they're a part of the project. And sometimes they could be the best advocates for you to spread the word on, hey, there's this new game coming out, it's really cool. So we've actually even looked at it even in that aspect as far as, you know, just building a community around the game.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I backed Allison Road back when that was on Kickstarter, right before the guy canceled it because they were supposedly going to be getting a deal with that publisher that I guess fell through because now, as everybody should know, it didn't do good because now the guy is by himself making the Allison Road by himself, which that kind of sucked. But at least it shows he really has the blood, sweat, and tears to put into this game. So his game, I should say.
Yeah, it's I don't think anyone really understands what goes into making a game until you make a game.
I was going to say I wouldn't really know, but I mean, I do know it takes a lot of time, and it definitely takes a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for?
You gotta love it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was trying to say.
Passion for it.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
yeah, because if you don't, then yeah, of course it's never going to get finished. Or if it does get finished, it might be like 20 years from now or something. But,
yeah, and you know, we've ran through the same things. The running joke in our studio is we've gone through a lot of people on this project, and if we took all those people and put their names on tombstones, we could fill an entire cemetery in Shady Hollow.
Wow, man. Holy crap.
It's making games. It's a really tough thing. It's extremely stressful because you're always working under some type of deadline, and the deadlines are typically almost impossible to hit. But you got to try and hit them so you can get it done. And we've gone through our ups and downs. We've had a lot of people that started off on the project that ended up either due to stress or due to other things going on in their life, they had to leave the project.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had to, find replacements for them. And it's been a really, really rocky, tough road. But and there's been times that it's dropped down to just me, and then had to kind of rebuild people. Build, new people, find new people to replace the ones that left. And
then you have to train them and stuff like that, right? Or somebody else has to find them? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's tough, and especially, like I said before, in the area I'm in Northeast Ohio, games like this aren't typically made here. So the people that have the skills to be able to do it, a lot of times they leave and move to the West Coast to go work for studios. So trying to find people that have the skills to actually pull this off in our local area, it's really tough, know. And there are people there, but sometimes it's like finding a needle in a haystack to find that right person. And then the other thing is, you may find somebody who has the skills, but they don't fit in with the rest of the team.
Ooh.
So you have that problem sometimes too. And to do a game, you got to have a team that's really firing on all engines, and there's got to be. I would say there's got to be chemistry amongst the team members. They gotta like each other, and they gotta be able to work well together, or you'll never pull it off.
Agreed.
But yeah, I mean, God bless the gentleman doing Allison Road that he's still at it.
Yeah.
He'll get a team back together, guaranteed, because he's not giving up. And a lot of people in that situation would have just called it quits and gave up. So yep. I have a ton of respect for him.
Oh yeah. I actually tried reaching out to him once to see if I could possibly do an interview with him, but I never got anything back. So maybe sometime down the road, maybe I'll hear something from him. But it would be nice because he definitely would be one guy I would love to hear his thoughts about this project. Because it's almost like a bad movie. Well, I don't want to say a bad movie, but you know how, like, back in the day with filmmakers, they had that deadline. And even with like an indie studio like you guys per se who are struggling, they almost sometimes, or they actually usually always do, but they usually always find that success, even from rushing. They seem to just like want to try to build or create or film something like the best, kind of like their best thing, but it almost seems to be like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like
yeah. I think adversity brings out the best in us. And I think if you have a project and everything is smooth sailing from beginning to end, something's not right there. You're not pushing yourself hard enough, or something's just not right, because there's no project. I don't care if it's games, if it's software, if it's whatever you're working on in life. There's always going to be adversity. And I think adversity also builds character. And, the people that work through the adversity are the ones that are usually, majorly successful. And, I'm a big, I love documentaries and biographies. And if you look at some of the more famous people in the world, I mean, they've faced some major, major adversities before they got there. The one story that always intrigued me was the one about Sylvester Stallone when he wrote Rocky.
Yes.
Did you ever hear that story? He had to sell his dog. He sold his dog, I think, for like $1,500 or something like that. And just so that he could live to write the Rocky. And he wrote it, and the studios wanted it, but they didn't want him to play Rocky.
Right.
And he held out. And then once he made money off of that movie, he tried buying the dog back, and it ended up costing him something ridiculous, like $50,000 or more.
It was way stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, the adversity, I mean, he was ready to give up, and had he given up, where would he be now? Some of the movies that he was involved in that are all-time classics, Rocky, Rambo, I mean, the list goes on, we wouldn't have right now. So, I mean,
no. And they're like cult classics, technically. I mean, they're well known. Like, I mean, you could probably walk down the street and ask if anybody's ever heard of Rocky and Rambo, and they all could say, yeah, they're great films or whatever. So, yeah.
They may not have seen the movies, but they know of them. It's like Star Wars. You have people that watch Star Wars, you have people that never seen Star Wars, but everybody knows of Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. Because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Adversity.
Exactly. So adversity, it's just part of the game. It's just how you deal with it and how you handle it. And, I mean, there's been times that things have gotten super tough, especially in the early days, and you're trying to put this together, and you're trying to find people, and you're trying to finance it, and, you're watching your bank account go down every month, and, you're not getting anywhere. But fortunately, we stuck with it, and we're so close now to finishing it that it'd be crazy to quit at this point.
Nice. Before we go to the next question, is there any way for people that are listening or in general, is there a way where, like, if we wanted to donate money to you because we like the idea that you guys are throwing out at us, that we would like to see you guys complete it, is there, like, a way we could donate to you, to your studio, to help you make the game?
We don't really have anything set up, but that's a great idea. I mean, the only thing that we have, is like PayPal that we use for purchasing stuff, and we can accept payments. But I never really thought about setting up anything like that for like donations and stuff. But that's a really great idea.
Yeah, what you could do is you could use PayPal. I know there's a way where you can set up a donation link, and you could use that. I actually have one of those from PayPal for the podcast. If anybody wanted to donate to our podcast, they could use PayPal. I have the link somewhere, and people if they would like to, they can donate whatever amount that they want to, and to help support the podcast. So you could do that as well.
That would be really great. Yeah, that would be great. I never really thought about it, to be honest. But yeah, that would be fantastic. And today it's really easy to set things up like that with the internet and with PayPal and stuff like that. So that's something we should definitely look at. Maybe do a page on our website would be good.
Definitely. And for people that are listening, maybe what they could maybe do if they want to learn more about donating, or maybe get in contact with you about it, but for like PayPal or whatever. Don, what would be your email address that they could probably use to reach out to you if they wanted to donate something for your cause, like your project?
We have two emails. I have my email, which is dhileman, HILEMAN, at Enyx, that's ENYX, studios.com. And then the one that's associated with our PayPal, where we can accept payments and stuff, would be admin, ADMIN, at EnyxStudios.com.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll post those up as well in the description for people that if they would like to be generous and send some money your guys' way to help you guys out with this great project idea. Because I mean, like I said, it's based on true events, so that's got to be like points, brownie points for somebody. I mean, we don't really have that many based on true event games that much anymore. So, and especially since this is taking place about like pretty much the Salem witch trials in a way, it helps um, shed light, I should say. Like it shows light on it. It's weird saying that, but it's true. Like everybody should know what the Salem witch trials were. And if not, well, I guess you need to go back to school
and get educated on it.
Get educated on it because
because it was such an interesting. When you get into it, it's so interesting because everything with the witch trials, it really revolved around the darker corners of human nature. I mean, greed or jealousy, ignorance, fear. I mean, those all played into the Salem witch trials, where there was a lot of people that lost their lives that were innocent people over nothing. And it was just, somebody. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. I mean, you look into the history. I mean, you had Abigail Williams, who was. She was one of the people that, got a lot of that going, where she was accusing different people of being a witch, and
her parents, I believe, even as well.
Yeah, it might be. I don't remember, but I know she accused a lot of people, and it was either to protect herself so that they didn't tell a secret about her that they knew, or it was out of jealousy or out of spite. And then she got a lot of. Yeah, she got a lot of the other girls involved in town with it, and the what was it? What movie was it? Was it The Scarlet Letter? No,
The Crucible.
No, the Crucible. That they did a movie on that, and it was really interesting. But like us in the office, we bought a bunch of books on different things with witches and Salem witch trials and stuff like that, and we read through all of it. Thank goodness for Google. We were able to do a lot of Google searches. Lord knows if somebody ever pulled up our Google history, I mean, there might be questions to ask us. Looking up witches and witchcraft and Salem witch trials and stuff. The FBI they might want to question us a little bit based on our searching history, but it's just when you get into it, it's so interesting to learn because you think just from what you heard, but when you really get into it, there was just so many things going on.
Yeah, I mean, the one other thing that is fascinating me about this trial is like how they were punished, whether it be hung or you might have to help me on this. The dunking with the chair in the water.
Yeah.
And
the rocks on their abdomen.
Yeah.
The Iron Maiden, various different things they use. They use various different torture implements.
Like that's one thing that really drew my attention is like all this horrible thing to all these innocent people. And it's
the brutality of it.
Yeah, because one of their things behind the trying to drown them is that like their theory was if they were a witch they'd float.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that one.
Not
and that
sink like a stone. Yeah.
Yep.
That was so crazy because if they didn't float, that means they weren't a witch, which means they drowned.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was a no-win in that situation. And it had to be a very scary time to be alive because anybody can accuse you. And I thought it was really interesting, too, where they had the test. One of the other tests, if you were a witch, was if, say, a little girl said she was afflicted by you, they would take the girl and they would take you into a room and then tell you to stop afflicting her. And if the little girl started acting normal, then you were a witch, which made it really easy for somebody to
pin it on you. Yeah.
Which I believe Abigail Williams did that a few times, if I remember correctly.
Oh, she probably did.
Yeah, she did.
She did a lot of things. I mean, she would one nasty 7 or 11-year-old girl back then.
She's very naughty girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of her secrets or whatever that she was trying to conceal and she didn't want anybody to know about was that she slept with John Proctor. She had this affair with him under his wife's nose, and that's like one of the reasons why she was so spiteful towards others is because she was doing everything that she could to protect that secret, because secretly she was very much what's the word I'm looking for? Enthralled or intoxicated or in love with John Proctor. Like, she was obsessed with him, and she wanted him for herself, and she would stop anybody who was trying to get in the way.
Yep.
Yeah, it was so interesting to get into the history of all that, and it's just amazing how the people back then, they didn't think kind of like how we think, like, where it's like, okay, you got to prove this. Are you telling the truth? Or are you lying? And yeah, this doesn't make sense. It's really amazing how much things have changed since then.
Yeah, especially that one trial that they did where they would put you on like a weighing scale or whatever, and they would place like your spell book or whatever, and if what was it? If you weighed more than the book, or if the book weighed more than you? I'm trying to remember now. Either way, it was pretty much really dumb because you got accused either way because of course you're gonna weigh more than a book. So
yes,
yeah. So I forget exactly.
Maybe if you weighed less than the book, maybe that's where they would try to point fingers and say that you're a witch, because obviously in logic you would weigh more than a book.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
So maybe
I do remember
maybe it was something like that.
Yeah.
Some of those tests, they were almost guaranteed to say that you were a witch. So it's hard to tell. It's the same thing with the one where they put them in the water, and if they floated, they were a witch.
Or
there was no winning in that situation.
Yeah, so either way they would have died, because like they'd either die as being proven as a witch, or they would die as, being proven that they're not a witch by drowning. Yeah. It's like a no-win. It's a no-win situation. It's a double-edged sword either way you look at it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and you just got to think, like, all those poor souls that just suffered so much in that time, and it does, like, kind of make you wonder, what the hell were we thinking back then? Like, and of course, probably nothing, because we were still learning, like, everything at the time, but just people, if you don't know the witch trial, like I said, you need to go and look at this, because this is very, very deep, sad stuff that happened back in 1693.
People were very cruel.
People were a lot crueler back then compared to now. But then again, I don't know.
Absolutely. And that was, like I said, one of the things that really intrigued us about doing a game based on that, because we could really touch into the darker sides of human nature, like I keep saying, and it allows for a different kind of experience in a game.
Tess is pulling up something, so I don't really want to say anything yet, because I'm trying to figure out what she's trying to look at, because she's definitely looking for something.
Oh, you guys can keep talking.
Okay.
I'll intervene when I find it.
So next question, Don, is what's been the most fun creating Haunted Salem Witching Hour?
Oh, I think the most fun really is, one, the creative coming up with the story and stuff, and just kind of letting your mind go wild. And we'll have a ton of ideas that come up, and most of them don't make it to the actual story, but it's fun just to let your mind wander and do that. The other thing I think is a lot of fun is we've gotten into a lot of neat stuff with our studio and got to explore different ways of doing things. Like for one thing we do, we have a recording studio in our studio where we could do voiceover work, composing everything in-house. And learning how to use all that stuff was a lot of fun. Then also, we ended up going with, we built our own motion capture studio in our studio as well, and we're using the Perception Neuron motion capture suits. They're a cost-effective motion capture suit that works really great, but learning how to integrate all that and use it has just been, it's been a lot of fun just learning how it all works. And when you put a suit on a live person and you have them act out a scene that's in the game, and the way we got it set up in the studios, we can actually attach that suit to a character in the game in real time. So when our actor's acting it out, we could see it on the character inside the scene and see how it looks.
Oh, that's
things
cool.
like that. Yeah, things like that are just, they're a lot of fun to figure out. And then obviously, doing things like this, like the podcast and talking to people, and, talking to people that are excited about the project, that's a lot of that is what pulls us through because, like I said, when you're doing a game, it's hard. It's not easy. There's times that you just want to throw the towel in and you just want to call it quits, whether you're having programming issues or sometimes it's even issues that aren't related to us where, there's a new SDK that comes out that's not fully working, or maybe a new version of Unity, which is the engine we're using to build the game, comes out, but there's a bug in it that causes something else of ours to break, and you got to figure out. Those are frustrating. And it's like you get to a point where it's like, oh, man, I don't really want to do this today. And then we get to meet great people like you guys and your fans and get to talk about the project and your enthusiasm for it. It really kind of pushes us to keep going on and to do more. Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm my brain must be like wanting stuff because because here I am again. I'm going to be asking not only about the soundtrack, but not only did I ask about that, but now my mind wants to know, are you planning on possibly releasing like an art book? Because I love art books too. I love like anything that involves art book to actually see what went on storyboard wise or whatever, and like you can learn more too. Like you can see like kind of like example when we were talking about your first ever teaser trailer that people were saying is PlayStation 1 graphic. It would be nice to see in book form or video form, depending on how you would want to do it. But just to see like your studio progress of how your game came to life and everything else, like. Yeah, apparently my mind, like I said, my mind just wants to know if you are considering an art book.
That would be interesting, actually.
We've talked about that a lot, too, doing an art book. There's two things we've talked about. Doing an art book and kind of showing how everything progressed. Now, we're kind of different in our studio. We don't do a whole lot of concept drawings. Mm-hmm. We just jump in there on Maya or one of our programs, ZBrush, whatever, and we just start doing it. Mm-hmm. So we don't have like the concept drawings, but we have a lot of different iterations of the art, and I'd have to look and see if we still have it. I might have deleted, but the original Asylum was so much different than what it is now. It's funny to look at. We had things in there. We had broken UV maps, so the textures look stretched, and they look,
wow.
Yeah, and then, so we've kind of gone from there. The other thing that we've talked about is I actually have a notebook, one of those composition notebooks that I carry along with me all the time. Mm-hmm. And every random thought about the game, I write down in there so I don't forget it. And we thought about doing something possibly with that, too, seeing how the story has evolved so much from the beginning, because I'll tell you guys a little secret that nobody knows. Everyone listening to this will be the first to hear this. A Haunting was originally going to be a game called 6 Days. And the game was going to be, this is how the story's evolved so much over time. It still had to do with a witch, but it was a family bought this property that this witch once lived on. This woman that was accused of being a witch once lived on, and the property was haunted, and their daughter started acting weird, having night terrors, stuff like that, and they sent her to this almost like not a boarding school, but it's kind of like an asylum / boarding school. And
pretty much for like
just,
mental health, right? That
yes, and things just go terribly wrong. And long story short, she dies, disappears, whatever. And you're a journalist going back to this asylum to do a story on what happened, and everything starts playing out and all the hauntings and stuff.
So I'm assuming 6 days kind of was like the idea of you're gonna, of course, you're gonna need to correct me on this, but from what I'm taking in, it sounds like the 6 days is representing like each day is when the girl was becoming more sufferable, I guess, because you're saying she's developing like a mental health issue concern, maybe.
Yes.
But yeah,
it was six days of that, and you were stuck in there for 6 days, and we were going to do kind of like what Until Dawn did, where they had the time where it showed you 10 p.m., 11 p.m.
Oh, yep.
Well, we were going to do day 1, day 2, day 3.
Oh, okay.
Of what happened, and so that was kind of the start of a haunting, and then we really started sitting down. We started talking, and then that's when the idea of the film crew came up, and the idea of all kinds of different things, and then the name ended up switching from 6 days to a haunting witching hour.
Which I like that name. That's definitely a catchy name, because like I said, I mean, when I saw that title on that one website that I usually look at for games, and I just see a haunting witching hour, I kind of tilted my head like, ooh, what is this?
and we have some ideas for future seasons even. What we'd like to do is with the haunting is kind of turn it into a franchise, just like American Horror Story did, where this season's a haunting witching hour. Season 2 would maybe be a haunting something else, and it's a completely different storyline, completely different characters, and then eventually somewhere along the lines it all kind of ties in together.
That was going to be another question of mine, too. I was going to ask if Season 1's episode is going to, like, somehow connect. But if you're thinking multiple seasons, then that's going to be more cool.
Yeah, we're looking at multiple seasons, and then maybe one of the characters from Season 1 is somehow connected to a character in Season 2, or some event in Season 2. Maybe Season 2 technically happens before Season 1, and those events lead up to the events in Season 1. We haven't quite gotten that far yet, but we're looking at different things where it's a different story, different town, different area, different everything, but they're integrated somehow, some way.
Well, I like that idea, and that does sound like really cool. So, listeners, you need to support this. Like, do it, get a move on it. But yeah, it does sound like you've had a lot of fun, Don. I mean, like I said, 2 years is a long time, especially trying to get the idea, get your studio going, finding the right people who are passionate enough as you are to create a vision that will one day be able to be played. Which, speaking of which, the next question is, and I know you and me were talking about this, and that's how the whole interview idea came to be, but what are your plans for this game in order to release it? And I know you mentioned something to me about August. You wanted to do something in August, like on Steam.
Yes, what we're looking at doing is we're at a point now where we're really close to being able to launch something. So what we thought was we're looking at launching in early access on Steam in August. And then what we could do with that is we could launch in August on early access. We could talk to the gamers. We can get their feedback. We could really figure out what's right, what's wrong with the game, what people really love about it, what things they don't like, if there's anything. And we could, as we're working on finishing the full release, we can make it right, you know what I mean? And to me, I think early access is such a cool thing that Steam offers, because it allows a developer like us, like, we're building this game.
Build a better game.
Build a better game. We think we got it right, but obviously once everyone starts playing it, we may find out that everybody's saying the same thing. And I'll give you a good example of this. We did a play test up in Cleveland about a month or so ago, and we had full support for the Vive controllers inside the game, along with the Oculus Touch. Mm-hmm. Every person, there was about 65 people that played it. Every person that played it had a hard time using the Vive controllers in the game, but had no problems whatsoever with the Oculus Touch. And that kind of told us that maybe the Vive controllers aren't right for our game because we have the full walking instead of the teleportation. That was the thing they had a hard time because there wasn't thumbsticks, and you have to slide your fingers around on those Vive controllers. And they just had a hard time. They were running into walls. They were just getting twisted. So that's what I'm really hoping for with the early access is we get it out there and people, can purchase it, and then actually listening to what they say. Because I know some developers will put things out there, just kind of take the money that they make off of the sales and run and don't care. And a lot of developers, and I think this is really sad, they never finish the game.
I've seen that.
Yeah, and unfortunately that has given early access a bit of a bad reputation because there's so many games that don't get finished in there. But for us, what we want to do with the early access is really connect with everybody, look at the discussion posts, and, connect with our community of gamers that want to play this and take what they're saying and listen to it. Now, obviously, you can't incorporate every single thing every person says, but if you have the majority of the people or a good portion of them saying the same thing, then obviously that's something that needs addressed.
Right.
And our goal is we want to make the game right, and I think by doing early access, that will give us invaluable feedback from people who are actually playing it. Because for us to play test it, it's very difficult because we know where everything's at in the game.
Right.
We don't get scared by playing it. We don't get the same feeling that somebody who's never played it before will have.
Right.
So yeah, that's our plan. Early access in the first part of August. So we're working real hard on doing that, and as we're in early access, what we'll do is we'll continue improving on the graphics, improving on the mechanics, and we'll keep adding on more and more to do in the game, so that
which I'll say
so every
real
week
quick. I'll just say real quick too. Which I'll say it again. Which we've probably said this, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times now. But I'm going to say it to the listener. So listeners, give the studio a chance. I mean, Don is sacrificing his time today to talk to us because we find interest in his game because it sounds like a really cool, original idea. You got to think, though, yes, the first ever teaser trailer does maybe look like PlayStation 1 graphics, but you got to remember, we're talking about a studio that had just came to life 2 years ago who have a hopes and dreams of making their first ever horror game, and it's VR. And you gotta go now, even, and you need to look at these new screenshots that I don't know if they're up on the site or not, but I do know if you've got Instagram, you need to find them because there's that one picture on there that will just show you right then and there the difference between that witch in the first teaser trailer to now of how much improvement they've actually made. I just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
I really appreciate that. I really do because, the first teaser trailer, it was an experiment and it didn't go well, but we listened to everybody and we went back to the drawing board and we made a lot of changes, and I'm glad that it happened because I think the changes we made are so much better. And Paul, you've seen some of the screenshots. They're much different.
Oh, my God. Yeah, they're, like I said, just like the guy with Allison Road. I mean, I give that guy all my respect. And I give you guys, my respect because, I mean, I just love seeing people.
Your work is definitely involved.
Yeah, if you see a studio, passionate enough to involve and improve their graphics and stuff, that these guys are putting everything they got into this game. It's not like you're sticking to the PlayStation 1 graphics and that's going to be the entire game, because then probably nobody's going to play it, but maybe a few people will because maybe they missed the old graphics. But when you see a studio that is actually listening to fans and get it, sucking in their feedback and to make them better their project so that way people will be satisfied. I mean, I don't really know what else to say except for I give respect for that, because
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, because I mean, you're an indie company. You don't have that much, which I understand. But I mean, in order to succeed, though, you need the people, and in order to do that, you need to get on their side. And what you were saying, you need to listen to them. And without them, you wouldn't have did what you've already have done. Which
no, our fans are everything to us. I mean, because honestly, without our fans, we can't do this.
No,
I mean, you need the fans, and we respect, every comment we get. And I mean, the other thing to understand too is we try to incorporate everything in that we can that people are saying. Sometimes we can't incorporate everything in just due to either technical or time restraints, but we try. And like I said, our fans are everything to us, and I love hearing people send, when they send us Facebook posts or things like that. I really enjoy that. I really do.
Yeah.
And I try to reach back to everybody that reaches out to us. We're not one of those studios that are standoffish where you'll send something and you never hear from them. We actually try to respond to everything that everybody sends us.
And that's good. That's the way anybody should be, even bands. Like, without their fans, you wouldn't have became, quote-unquote, like, popular or whatever. You wouldn't have been as well-known as you are now because, word nowadays comes, like, so far now. It's not like back then where we didn't have internet, but yet people still knew who you were. Now, all you got to do is just click that share button and everybody is going to see it. So, I mean, it's crazy how, like, even word of mouth has gotten nowadays. So,
absolutely. And the other thing that I do is, like on Facebook and stuff, when somebody sends me a friend request, I always accept it and, try and connect with everybody that I can, because I know also for the fans, for them, they like to be a part of something too, and they like to know the people that are making the stuff that they're doing. And the one thing that I don't like, and I understand it, big studios, it's hard for them to respond to everything because they're getting millions of emails or requests or things like that, and it's just hard to follow up with everything. We're smaller, we don't get millions, so we make sure we follow up on everything. And I like to know our fans. I like to know about them. I like to chat with them. Because I mean they're the reason why we're doing this, and they're the reason why we're able to do this. And without them, I mean, there wouldn't be an Enyx Studios.
Exactly. So I guess for the final question that we got anyway.
Future game plans, your opinion on horror nowadays.
So pretty much like what Tessa's asking is, what are your future game plans?
It's a two-part question.
And the second part to the question is, what is your opinion on horror nowadays?
Okay. Our future game plans is, I figured what I want to do is, I want to get this game launched and I want to see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
We very well may find that we have a niche in the horror aspect, and maybe that's a genre that we stay in and just develop games in that genre. We have a couple ideas for some games that are not quite horror, but they're in lines with it. But it just all kind of depends on how things go, and I'm not opposed to staying in that genre because, I mean, Capcom has done that with Resident Evil, and they basically own the horror genre with Resident Evil series. I don't have a problem staying in that genre if that's what it means. I also don't have a problem with exploring other genres if it makes sense.
No, that's what Supernatural. Oh my God, Supermassive game does. They don't just focus on us. here we go. Focus on horror. They focus on other things too. Like they have like a dinosaur game. They got like other weird games that I'm not personally into, but you know, somebody else might be. So it's really cool. I mean, in my own take, I guess I'm too much of a horror junkie, so I would probably just stick with horror. But then again, at least I have a lot of ideas that I could do for games, though, because there's definitely like a lot of stuff that I would even probably do. Like, I won't lie, and I actually had a dream once where I wanted to make a cool RPG game, but I wanted to take like the mechanics of the Witcher game, and because I wanted to make it open world and make it so that people could had side quests and stuff like that besides just the main story. But I'm having a feeling my girlfriend here is probably going to look at me funny, or she's going to start cracking up laughing or something like, yeah, I knew it. But I had a vision to actually make like a Legend of Sleepy Hollow game, only an RPG game, and you would actually, yes, there she goes, she's cracking up laughing.
I knew it!
But,
I knew it!
But the idea would be you playing as the Headless Horseman, but you need to find your head but on the way you're finding like other side quests and stuff. That was like a random thing that I once dreamt about.
Oh, yeah.
So there's another idea for you guys. Yeah, I don't know how I thought of that. I guess love Sleepy Hollow, the legend behind that and stuff. And I mean, hell, I even have the Headless Horseman tattooed on my forearm. So.
And and speaking of ideas, I was looking up stuff in my book that I have. My Encyclopedia of Witches and Witchcraft. It's a second edition by Rosemary Ellen Gully. And I was actually looking up the Russian folklore legend of Baba Yaga.
Oh, yeah, she's a good one.
Oh.
She's very interesting.
Yeah.
She would be a fun one to probably do a game on, too. I haven't even seen her enough in movies, and I think it'd be cool. I've seen her in, like, one game, but it was The Rise of the Tomb Raider as, like extra DLC. But Baba Yaga, in Russian folklore, a female witch who loves to roast and eat people, preferably children. She is as likely to pop someone in the oven as she would a stranger, even family. She lived in a little hut beyond a river of fire in a kingdom, and the hut was rinsed with stakes topped by human heads. And it stood on chicken legs and dog heels turned on command. And those brave enough to enter the hut usually found Baba Yaga lying on the floor with her right leg in one corner and her left leg in another corner. Sometimes her nose growing into the ceiling.
Yeah, like she's weird, but she's cool weird.
She also possessed a magic wand and flew around in an iron mortar or cauldron.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be really cool. And I think what's really cool about the horror genre is why I like it is because you could really push it far with graphics, special effects, the VFX stuff, everything. And something like that I could see really pushing it far where it would be a lot of fun. So, yeah, I do like doing, like, the horror genre. I've thought about doing other games as well in different genres, like, doing something that's more, like, fantasy-based with magic and stuff like that. But I think the horror genre, for right now at least, it just fits better with us because we understand it better. And I just think there's a lot to do. And, one game that I would love to do and, down the road, if it would ever be possible, would be a VR version of Halloween because I got really inspired when I saw them talk about, the Friday the 13th that came out and the studio that did it and how they got the rights to doing it and stuff. Because that game actually started off as a different game.
Camp Summer.
If that's possible, we would still help you back it.
Yeah.
So, if anyone's listening that knows anybody that has, ties to the IP to Halloween, we're listening. But seriously, that would be, I think, absolutely frightening, taking that original movie and turning it into a game. And, I could imagine being a player, being in a closet and looking through the slats and seeing Michael Myers walk across in VR would just be...
With his kitchen knife. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yep, Mr. Silent and Stoic.
Exactly. So yeah, as of right now, we're kind of sticking in the horror genre. And if it turns out that that's the genre for us, then that's where we'll stay, and we'll end up just kind of trying to own that genre. But if another opportunity comes up that makes sense, and then we would explore it. It's kind of hard to tell right now because we're just trying to get the first game out and stay alive to do another game.
Well, also, I don't even think we even have a game studio that just focuses on horror anyways, because at least to my knowledge anyway, I don't think there's just like a specific studio that just focuses on horror. So if you were to become that studio, you'll probably be seeing, oh, this guy just bought my game again. All right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that very well could be in our future, too.
Yeah. But what were you going to say?
I was going to go back to Baba Yaga again.
Oh, yep.
From what I noticed when I did play the Rise of the Tomb Raider, when I did do the DLC for Baba Yaga, I thought that they did really well in portraying her, because they actually took her little cabin hut house and gave it chicken legs feet, so it was walking around. And then she had these almost like hellhound type dogs that she would send after you. And then when you were trying to do a boss fight with her and take her out, she was flying around in the inside of a cauldron, and you had to shoot her when she would pop up and stuff, and pour liquid hot molten lava stuff on her. So it was actually really cool how they portrayed her in Rise of the Tomb Raider. But I would like to see that get turned into a horror game, or somebody do a movie off of the folklore legend about her or something like that, because I think it'd be a cool concept.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Absolutely. Another thing that we had even looked at, possibly down the road too, is making some mini games. A game that's an hour or two long.
Oh yeah.
Based off of stuff like that. Sometimes it gets hard to get into a 5-10 hour game on certain concepts.
Well, that's where story comes into play. As long as you have that strong story and characters that you can relate to and be like, oh yeah, I really hope this guy lives or whatever, but then he dies. It's like, oh man. Or maybe you have this guy who you want to live, and then they do survive. That right there, I think, is one of the reasons why horror films, I'm going to say, fail nowadays, is because they're mainly just focusing on a stupid story with characters that you can't even relate to, for one. And for horror game-wise, I don't really know how I can word that yet. I guess it would really depend on what the game is. Like Outlast 2, oh man.
That was a disappointment to both of us.
That was a disappointment to both of us.
The first Outlast was amazing. It was incredible. That game scared the shit out of me. Especially when you had Chris Walker chasing after you and you could hear his chains and him growling almost. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, and games like that, there should be more games like that scare the shit out of you, that make you go, oh my god, I'm gonna die, or am I gonna get out of this? Put you on edge and really put fear in you. But like Paul said, with Outlast 2, we were incredibly disappointed. It basically turned into this runner game. You just pretty much ran everywhere. Yeah, you ran everywhere. You didn't really get to explore your environment. you know, you didn't really, it didn't really give off like the vibes of like the first Outlast. Like there wasn't really much of a really good story to it because you felt rushed through it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Would you guys be interested in hearing about a couple of the new mechanics that we came up with for the game? That's
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Whatever
please.
you want to talk about, Don.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, if you don't mind. I don't want to keep you guys too long.
No. You're not keeping up from anything.
You go for it.
Well, one thing that we were missing in this game is a really good mechanic. I mean, walking around and exploring, finding things, finding pieces to the story, pieces together is cool. But we needed a mechanic. We came up with a mechanic. Basically, this mechanic that we came up with, I'm really happy with it because I think it's going to be cool. You know how, like, Amnesia had the sanity meter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where as you started going nuts, your vision started to blur and stuff like that.
Yep.
Well, I always thought that was cool, but we didn't want to, steal that from them because that's Amnesia. We wanted to do something different. We came up with a mechanic that works similar, where when things are about to happen, when things are starting to happen, you start getting whispers in your ears.
Ooh.
Using the spatial. And when you start hearing those, and as you're, and the basics of it is, say if you're in an area that you really shouldn't be in, that mechanic, it keeps building up over time, and the whispers get louder and louder and louder, and basically it represents you kind of being afflicted, going a little bit goofy, a little bit mad. And the cool thing about it is you could be exploring an area, and then you start getting these whispers, and they get louder and louder and louder, and something's going to happen. I got to get out of here. I got to do something. I got to hide.
Yeah, it's like something's coming.
So is that what you have to do to make them to make the whispers stop? Do you have to hide?
Hide or get out of the area or do something that subsides it. Yes.
Okay.
So that's going to be one of the mechanics, and we're using the spatial audio on that. So
it's kind of like perception too.
Yeah. So the whispers sound like they're coming from all around you, like from the left to the right, behind you, and we're pretty happy with that because it adds to the whole creepiness of it. Where you walk into a room and it's already kind of creepy, and then all of a sudden you hear, and then these whispers just start. Yes, get out. Yeah, that's one of them. Get out.
Yep.
That's
here, a famous one anyway.
Yes. So, and we have the mechanics under the hood is basically it's an algorithm, and the longer you're in these areas, the louder they start getting.
Now, okay, you're gonna have to help me with this one, Tessa, with a word probably.
Okay.
But now, can this also be like I'm going to say like can these whispers backfire on you? And what I mean by that is like when these whispers become louder, is that because you're getting closer to where the voice is coming from, where the danger is per se? Or
no.
Okay.
No, they get louder because you're still in a danger area or an area where something can happen. Hello?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought we got disconnected there. I heard a click. But yeah, no. So, say if you go, I don't know, an example, you go into a room and they start, and say you just stand still, they'll start getting louder and louder and louder because we have some algorithms under the hood of the game that it just keeps building up over time, and you've got to get out of the area or do something in that area to subside them before the witch or something else shows up and gets you.
Okay. Yeah, because I was almost thinking like what you could be doing too is trying to guide the player to their death per se. You know what I mean? Like the witch is trying to call out to them and be like portraying like what to say, for example, like their dead mother or whatever. Like they're using that mother's voice to tell their kid should know that the mother is dead, but they're gonna go to the voice anyway because it's their quote unquote mother. So that's what I was trying to ask too.
Yeah, Yeah, and all of that's definitely possible with the mechanics we did. We're right now, what we're doing is we're actually laying in. We got, like, the environment's all in. We have to fine-tune some of the textures on the environment and, like, do the set dressing, like put in furniture and stuff like that. But we're setting up all the gameplay now, all the stuff that you're going to have to do, all the obstacles, the goals that you're trying to achieve. So we're going to be playing with this new mechanic quite a bit inside this game. But I'm pretty excited about it because it's a bit unique, and I think it's something that that will really lend itself well to kind of creeping people out, but yet also, like you said, kind of guiding them in different areas of where they should and shouldn't be, or where they should be going.
Okay. Huh.
So I'm really kind of excited about this mechanic. It's hard to explain what we have planned for.
Well,
but,
that's why we gotta experience it firsthand to understand you better too. But is there any type of more sound we should like either avoid or like should know about for game-wise?
Should be like a warning to
Yeah,
us.
that could be like a warning, like signs.
Like, for example, I'll give you a couple examples. Like, I've been watching a friend of mine play Dead by Daylight, and I've noticed that each time the killer gets closer to you, the closer the killer gets to you, the faster your heart beats and the louder it gets. And when the killer is away from you, it goes silent. Like, also with perception, like, I noticed, like, the room would, like, what was it? It would, like, flash, like, a red color or something. Like
an orangish red.
Like an orangish red, and then go back to normal, like bluish green or whatever when it was safe.
Yep.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because that's kind of exactly what we're doing, where we have the mechanic where it's on the witch. Okay, so when she's in the environment, the closer you get to her, it starts firing off this mechanic as well. And then if you get away from her, then the whispers start disappearing. But we're also using the whispers in different areas because it's not going to be just the witch coming at you in this game, because that, I think, would get boring after a while. There's
kind of like Daylight, if you ever heard of that game.
Yeah. So there's other things that are going to be happening that could be equally as dangerous as just the witch. Because I think, my opinion is if the witch is in your face constantly, it kind of takes away from her a little bit, where she becomes less frightening.
Right.
What I like the idea is if you're walking down a hall and these whispers start coming, maybe sometimes the witch shows up, maybe sometimes she don't, maybe it's something else. Maybe
like
you're going to walk
entity or some type of something
supernatural presence or something.
Bumping in the night.
Supernatural presence. It could be you're walking down a hallway and this is just a rough example, and they're getting louder and louder and louder, and because of her, something drops from the ceiling that's going to hit you.
Or like a door slams or swings open or something like that.
Building up that tense there, you don't know what's coming.
Yep. Exactly. So I kind of want to keep the gamers where they can't predict all the time, the witch is coming because the music's cranking up or because I'm hearing whispers. It's not always necessarily going to be that with her coming. It's something's going to happen. Or it could be, too, it's something where she wants you to not go into an area because there's something that you're going to find that starts... You know what I mean? So she's playing with you.
Yeah, she's trying to, like, lure you away from the important door or whatever that...
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's her playing with your mind is what it is. You know what I mean? So maybe there's a room that has a journal that gives you a clue to what's going on or a clue to how to stop things, and she doesn't want you there, so the warning signs start coming up, and she's trying to sway you around. So gamers are going to have to really decide, I'm hearing these whispers, do I really want to go down this hall or not? Is something bad going to happen, or is it her just trying to mess with me? It's kind of trying to mess with their minds a little bit.
Nice.
Psychological.
Yeah, I like this already.
Psychological. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
So And then also to give you a little bit of background too on the depth of these characters that you're playing as. Eddie, is player that was the character you'll be playing as in episode 2. Eddie's backstory is Eddie had a checkered past. He was not a great person, was into some things he shouldn't have been in. Him and his friend decide they needed money. They decided to break into this old convenience store at night and rob it. Well, the convenience store owner comes in, and Eddie's friend shoots him. And before the convenience store owner dies, he fires a shot off that hits Eddie. Okay? So Eddie's rushed to the hospital. As soon as they get him out, he's going to jail because breaking and entering.
Right.
Well, Eddie's parents get a phone call that he's in the hospital. They're rushing to the hospital. On their way to the hospital, they're in a car accident that kills them. That's the guilt that Eddie's living with, that he's trying to redeem himself in this game, that because of his actions, his parents were in that car accident and are dead.
Yeah. Yeah, and that type of feeling would not go away either, because it's always going to be you remembering.
I've also noticed something else too when I was reading about the game, that the reverend that betrayed the
John?
No, the Hollow Creek witch. The woman Elizabeth Ainsley. She was betrayed by Reverend James Beaumont. But I also noticed that I'm assuming the first protagonist that you play as in the first episode is Cliff Beaumont. Is that like an ancestor of Reverend?
No. The first episode you're actually going to play as Ray Wilkinson. There might be a couple things on the website that need updated. It's been a while since we've updated it. Yeah. You're actually going to play as Ray Wilkinson. Ray and Emily Baxter decide to go into this asylum because that's where Beaumont was. They want to kind of do this little YouTube video because Emily, she wants to get out of the small town. She has dreams of being famous and everything like that, and thinks that this video is going to be what gets her.
Oh boy, here we go.
Gets her there. And Ray has a bit of a crush on Emily, and he'll do anything she says.
Oh boy!
And Emily kind of uses that to her advantage. She knows that Ray likes her, and she talks him into going into this asylum with her, and that's where everything just begins. It goes sour, and what that does in episode 1 is that sets the tone for the rest of the season because of what happens in that asylum. It spurs up all the stories of what happened in 1975 with John Beaumont, with the miners, the bad stuff that was happening in Shady Hollow at that time. And these filmmakers decide they're going to go to Shady Hollow because they see this as their way to make that documentary that makes them famous.
Right. Kind of like...
They see an opportunity.
I don't know why, but it's almost making me think of those two movies called Grave Encounters, 1 and 2. I don't know if you've ever seen those, Don.
No, I didn't see those.
Grave Encounters.
I'm gonna have to check those out.
They were about this film crew that was filming like a TV show, which was called Grave Encounters. But this Grave Encounter that they did, they never were seen again. And then the second one involved these people that are like, well, we need to find out what happened to the original crew. So they went to go find the original crew, and then that's when all the bad stuff happened.
Well, it usually takes somebody stirring up something. Yeah,
so that's why hearing that kind of reminds me of Grave Encounters, which, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Grave Encounters, but yeah, just hearing you say that just kind of reminds me of those two movies.
Yeah, we needed a reason for the film crew to be interested in this story and to come to Shady Hollow.
Right.
So that was the whole point of Ray and Emily, because Ray and Emily, they were raised in Shady Hollow. They know the folklores, they know the stories, they know everything. And they, being teenagers, they go and they want to do this thing. They want to break into this asylum. Yep. They want to do a video. And, of course, by doing so, they get in over their heads and things go bad. And then the whole town starts talking again, the John Beaumont stuff, the Hollow Creek Witch, all that. And that sparks the interest of the film crew to come and do this documentary.
Yeah, this game already sounds interesting already.
Yes, it does, very much so.
Don, you're wanting to do a early access in August. Do we know when in August, or do you guys not have decided yet?
We're looking at probably around the second week of August.
Okay.
We're hoping to be on early access, but it's going to be right around there. And the nice thing is with early access, the game doesn't have to be 100% fully done, because that's the whole point of early access.
Right.
We could get it out there, and then we could continue polishing it, getting it done. But also the nice thing about early access is if there's bugs in it, those gamers are going to find those bugs better than we are, and then this way we can go and we could polish and fix those up. Because the one thing I hate about games is you buy a game, it's filled with 10 ton of bugs, and then you have a 30 gigabyte download for an update just to fix the bugs, and it takes you an entire day before you can play the game that you bought.
Yep.
We're gonna try our best to prevent any of that from happening on our official launch, where we got this game. It's done, it's polished, bug tested, everything, and that's hard to do for an indie studio to do full blown bug testing with QA and everything. But with Steam Early Access, that helps out a lot.
And then, so after that, you are, this is from you and me when we were talking about, going back in our old conversation, but you were saying hopefully, and I'm just going to say it like that because you never know with the early access, but you're hoping to have episode 1 by October, because you were mentioning 2 months after early access, so we're looking at possibly October for the first episode?
Yes, yeah, that would be, if everything goes well and there's nothing major major obstacle that comes up, that's our goal, and I don't foresee any problems with that, but, I don't want to go and be too confident, because as soon as you do that...
Well, that's why I threw in hopefully, so...
Yes. Yeah, that's our goal. That's our goal with
and
that.
And then, I know, like, a lot of people would probably want to know, but, how long after, like... all right, we'll just say it like this. How long after the first episode could we expect episode 2?
We're going to shoot for about 3 to 4 months afterwards.
Okay.
Episode 2. And what we're really hoping for is, that the game does well. We can expand the team and then maybe get episodes out even faster than that. But you need more people to be able to do that, and to do that we need the first episode or 2 to do really well, so we can expand to hit things quicker. But it's tough to go a little bit quicker because you want to make sure it's right. You don't want to just put it out there and it's no good.
Yeah, no. Because then that just draws up bad reviews, and then nobody's going to touch it or play it.
Exactly, and that's the thing. We could have launched this game months and months ago, but it wasn't right. We've been holding off because we want to make it as right as we possibly can, so that it's the best game that we can produce. Yeah,
and especially being your first game, you want to make sure you guys leave that first impression. It's almost like Don, for example. Like, I haven't met you in real life, but it's like if I were to meet you in real life, you want to give off your first impression as like who you are, not just some guy who just doesn't give a crap. So yeah,
and this game, I mean, it's a labor of love, and everyone that's working on it, I mean, we're all passionate about it. We're not just making a game to try and make money. We're making a game that we think's really good, and I mean, it's, long hours, sometimes 12, 14, 16 hours a day.
Wow.
I'll be at the studio working, and sometimes that goes on 6-7 days a week. A lot of times it goes on 6-7 days a week. So for us, it's not about the money. Obviously, you need it to sell and make money so you could continue on to make another game. But it's really about, let's put out a game that's really great and that the gamers enjoy and they can get behind and feel a part of.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Do you have anything else to say, Tessa? Or ask?
No, this game actually sounds really promising, and I honestly can't wait to try it out, and I will be sure to let you know what I think of it, and if it scares me, and I will let you know if, like, I find any bugs or anything like that, but,
And our goal is to make Paul scream like a little baby, right?
Yeah. I want you to scare my Paul here. He needs a good one.
Yeah.
It's long overdue.
Yeah, it has been. For me to get physically scared, I don't even remember. Years. It's pretty bad. Not bad, but it's just like, oh man.
Very difficult.
Everybody's getting scared but me. But
we're going to try our best, that's for sure.
Yeah, like I said, I'm giving you guys props. I'm giving Vidges props because when I backed Vidges on Kickstarter, I was looking at this game and I just said, I need to play this in VR. And it better scare me kind of thing because I feel like Vidges will be that game to scare me just because Vidges look amazing. And then I see your game and I'm like, this has some potential too once I learn more about it. So, Don, like with this interview too, like I'm learning more about your game, so it's going to be, I think, really neat, especially if you're in an asylum because a lot can happen in an asylum. So you're like, there's endless possibilities you can do with an asylum. You could at one point make it have like the protagonist go down this hallway with like, I don't know, a flashlight or whatever that you're gonna have or something.
And then you have like flashlight problems.
And then you have flashlight problems.
And it goes dark, and then it comes back on, and then like something's in your face.
Or that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. One important thing too for everyone listening to know is this entire season won't take place in the asylum. There's going to be other areas and other episodes that you'll be playing in. Including the old Beaumont estate. You'll be visiting that. You'll be visiting the town of Shady Hollow. So there's going to be a lot of places to explore and to be a part of in this game.
That's going to be awesome.
That is going to be awesome. And that's going to be with Eddie, correct? Because that's what I'm I think, understanding now, too. I mean, I don't even know if I should go by your description anymore on your site, but because on here saying that you're going to be playing as John as the first episode, and then in
Eddie, you're gonna be playing as Eddie in the second episode, arriving in Shady Hollow.
Yeah. So
originally we were going to have you playing as John in the first episode, but we just couldn't get the story to make sense that way.
Yeah.
So we ended up changing it up a little bit. I need to update our website.
Yeah, you do.
It's been a while. It's been a while. It's tough sometimes to keep all that stuff up to date because we're so tied into doing the game mechanics.
Well, and that's understandable because you're trying to make something good. Like, you're putting your passion into making the game rather than just the website. The website would be nice to have the correct info, but at least in this case, it goes to show all your passion and stuff is just making the game right now, which is good because you want it spot on. Otherwise, you're gonna run into issues. Yeah.
And by the time everyone hears this too, it'll probably be all updated because we're planning on that this week. Actually, going through and making some changes. We're even looking at potentially adding a dev blog in there where we can. Do different talks about what's going on at the studio, what we're working on.
Kind of like a weekly update. Yeah, that would be nice. That way we can see what's going on. Yeah. So, Don, is there anything else you would like us to know about while we're here, or do you think you've kind of covered enough for your guys' game?
I think we probably covered enough. I'm sure once this is done, all night I'll be thinking, I should have said this or I should have said that, but I can't think of anything right now, really.
Well, that's good because I've been trying to pick your brain and stuff as much as you could. That's why I've been trying to let you talk because it's nice to hear something fresh coming out game wise. Because as for like an indie studio, it's hard too because you're making a what I think is going to be really cool is a episodic game instead of a full length game. Kind of like, but then again, look at Until Dawn. That could have easily have been an episodic game, but instead they went with a full-blown game, but it acted like an episodic game.
Yes, it did. They did a really good job with that game. My hat goes off to them. There were so many things they did right in that game to me.
Oh, yeah. I liked how they had, like, 2 or 3 stories going on at the same time. And
yes,
that is, like, awesome. Speaking of, like, 2 to 3 stories in a game, but have you ever seen the movie, Don, called The Awakening?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's about, but I remember watching it.
I have to rewatch it, but myself too, but it's about this lady investigator who gets called to investigate why this spirit of a child is like what's going on with the spirit of the child, I should say, because the guy showed her some old photograph, and if you look closely, at first the spirit of the child is inside the building, but then as the years progress, she's outside. She's no longer inside the building, so she's outside in the crowd of people, getting the picture taken with everybody else. So she went there.
I do remember that.
Yeah, so then she went to go investigate that, but then I don't remember the twist, but I just remember right before the twist happened, I thought it was ended. The movie was going to end, but it didn't. It was just like, wait, what? So that's the type of stuff I really enjoy too. So hopefully
that one, and there was the other one too, where the lady went to the house and the parents had the doll of their son. The boy, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a pretty good one too.
Yeah, it was not bad. I mean, I guess I'm just picky, but yeah, I like the idea of it.
Yeah, the idea was really kind of cool how they did it, and I didn't think he was still around until later in the movie. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but yeah, it was pretty neat.
Yeah, it was interesting. We'll just say.
Yeah, and the movie I was very disappointed in was the movie The Witch. That one I was really looking forward to coming out, and once it did, I was a bit disappointed with it.
Wow. I actually really loved The Witch.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We did an episode about it in season 1.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it didn't quite do it for me. Maybe I need to sit and watch it one more time. I'm like that, though. Sometimes I'll watch a movie and I don't like it the first time, and then I'll watch it again, and then I really, really like it.
Sometimes it takes more than one, watch through of a movie to actually get, the whole story and for it to make sense.
But for somebody like me who is part deaf, I kind of tend to need subtitles, and that movie definitely
needed subtitles.
Needed subtitles for me, especially when the contract was being made, I'll say, for people who have not seen The Witch yet. But that scene, though, definitely needed subtitles because I didn't really know what the hell was being said. I caught bits and pieces of it so I could understand it, after I put 2 and 2 together. But after going back when it came out on DVD and seeing it on subtitles, I was just like, okay, this makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I probably just need to watch it again. I have a bad habit. Sometimes when I'm trying to watch a movie, I have my iPad out and I'm looking up something for work while I'm watching the movie, so I miss bits and pieces.
Yeah, technology is a dangerous thing nowadays.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's something I think we need to, like, kind of try to learn to distance from.
Yes, I think all of us need to, especially us.
Mm-hmm.
Like you especially, but that's okay. Well, because
Speak
don't
for
you dare
yourself.
start. I am not that bad compared to you, but
baloney.
all right.
Anyways,
Well, that's like Blair Witch. The Blair Witch movie that just barely came out. I thought that was gonna be kind of stupid, but at the same time, it was interesting. Don, did you get a chance to see that new one, The Blair Witch?
No, I haven't. I've been wanting to, but I haven't been able to see it yet. I've been meaning to go up to the video store and rent it, because I was kind of excited when I saw it coming out, because I thought, well, this might be kind of neat. I want to see what they're going to do with it and how they're going to tie it all together. Because, like, the second Blair Witch movie, I thought it was good.
Book of Shadows?
Yeah, in its own way, I thought it was good, but it was like a whole different movie. It really didn't have much to do with the original one.
No, I like the idea of it. I think that one was actually one of my favorites, too. I think I prefer that one over the original, but that's because because I really enjoyed the effects that they did with the second one, I think, is why I like it more. Like, you got to see more than the original, but then again, sometimes not seeing the entities or whatever's going on, it
makes it better.
Makes it better. It makes it more creepier.
Makes you question what it is, or if it's really going on, or
like if you have Netflix,
just a figment.
Don, me and Tessa just watched a weird movie called XX. It's like some short.
It's a short horror anthology of I think four stories.
Yeah, and the first one, me and Tessa were just like, what is in the box? Because it's called The Box. And me and her are just like, even at the end of the movie, you never learn what's in the box, but it's just like, me and her are still trying to like, what the hell is in the box?
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out what was in the box.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've seen that on Netflix. I put it in my list to watch later. That was under the new releases. Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, we would recommend it if you like the short horror thing.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting.
And I will throw out there too, I can send you a link to it too, Don, but I was in a short little horror trilogy, I'll say, film that I used to be friends with these filmmaker guys, but one day I just happened to log on Facebook and noticed that they removed me from their friends for no reason, so I was kind of just like, whatever. I'm not going to get upset over it, but the movie is called...
Yeah, definitely send it to me.
Yeah.
Dead Static.
It's called Dead Static.
Yeah, he showed it to me like a couple weeks ago, and I actually really liked it.
Yeah, I will say, though, there is some language in it, so make sure you have, headphones or something, because it is on YouTube, so, yeah.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. No, I'd like to see that. That would be great.
Yeah, and I think you'll like it more because it is based on some real facts about my state, but... Some actual real haunted places, but they just, took it up a notch kind of thing. So.
Oh, yeah, that sounds cool. I definitely want to check that out.
Yeah, and the second tale actually showed you the black agate that me and Tessa were talking to you about.
Okay.
Yeah, they were able to. They had the trespass to do it because the cemetery is very well patrolled at night. But yeah, you'll actually get to see what the black agate looks like. So.
That'd be cool. Because I'm interested in that. That sounds like a really, really interesting urban legend.
It is, and if you would also like, I could send you a link to the book about it too, if you would like to read up about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I like reading stuff like that.
Then I think you would like Vermont a lot because we have a lot of cool
urban legends and haunted places.
Yeah, like another famous one for Vermont is the Eddy brothers, which that is a fun tale. I'm gonna have to probably do an episode on them or something.
Mhm.
But maybe, I don't know. A lot of people kind of don't really like it when people talk about the Eddy brothers, but yeah.
Oh well.
Oh well. But yeah, Don. If there's anything else that you want to say just one last time, I just want to make sure, like, you didn't happen to think of anything. Yeah, I just want to make sure one more time.
Yeah, no, I think we got everything covered, and I really appreciate you guys spending the time to do this podcast with us, and I also want to thank everybody who listens to this podcast for taking the time to listen to what we're working on and what we're doing. You know, we really appreciate that.
No. I mean, hell, we wanted to help you guys.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not really often we get to see, like, a horror game that's being made as an episodic game. Like, I know The Walking Dead from Telltale is an episodic, but that's not really
more cartoony.
It's more cartoony, though. It's not like an actual game that could be full length, and you're breaking it up into different chapters or episodes. So it's really neat to see something different and unique, I guess, is what I kind of want to say. But yeah, Don, before we go, for people listening, where can people find, like, Enyx Studios or you even, or whatever, to kind of keep up to date to what's going on with A Haunting Witching Hour?
Well, we do have a Facebook page for Enyx Studios. We have a Twitter. I think it's at Enyx Studios. And then also we have our website, which has links to the Facebook page and Twitter. And our website is www.enyxstudios.com. And Enyx is spelled ENYX.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I'll have the links up under the description for people can find it that way too as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, we're going to be doing some updates. Actually, this coming week we had scheduled to do some updates on the website because we have some new screenshots we want to get up there. And we have a contact form that if somebody wants information or wants to reach out to us, they could fill out on the website, and that gets sent over to me. And we have the links on there for Facebook and YouTube, and I think YouTube too. We have a YouTube channel, but we only have the old teaser on there right now. And for anyone
Speaking
who's
of
catching
teaser,
this late on,
when can we expect the new trailer? Since that music you sent me is what we were listening to anyway, and what we're going to probably be hearing again is from the new trailer, correct?
Yes. We should be launching. Well, we will be launching that with the Steam Early Access launch because we'll have to have the teaser on the page for Early Access. So it'll get launched right on the same time as the Early Access gets launched,
which was the second week of August, correct?
Yeah, we're shooting for around the first to second week of August is what we're shooting for.
So there you go, listeners. There's no way to add you guys yet, right, on Steam? Like, the game's not up, correct? Like, you know what I mean? Like, the game doesn't have its own page yet?
No. We're working on the page right now, but we haven't made it.
Okay.
I don't believe it's active yet.
All right, well, people can try to look for it, I guess, but maybe to no avail then. Maybe.
And we on Steam, our Steam ID is Enyx Studios.
There you go.
If anyone wants to connect with us on Steam, that's our Steam ID.
Very cool. Well done. Thank you for your time, and
thank you very much.
It was definitely a pleasure to listen here because I definitely enjoyed learning more about this nice idea that you guys have been creating for like almost 2 years now. So it definitely sounds like a dream come true in your end. Like you're gonna finally be able to release at least part one, like the first episode. But then, like you said, you want to know how at least the first 2 episodes go, and then you'll have a better understanding of stuff. But I bet in your eyes, you're very excited about releasing it finally.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a long time coming. You know, we've been Enyx Studios for 2 years now, and this game here we've actually been working on for about a year. The year prior to that was just figuring out the VR stuff and what project we wanted to actually do, and so it's been a long time coming, and we're really excited to finally have something to put out there and let everybody see and listen to what they have to say about it.
Right. Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be very nice. And I think we're all set over here too. Yep. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I might have to re-listen to this to take all the information back. I think I need more coffee.
You'll have to forgive Paul. He's having trouble talking today.
Blah 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 blah.
But we wanna thank you, Don, from us here at Everything Horror Podcast, for giving us some of your time today and doing this interview with us. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Oh, no problem. Thank you guys. I mean, I really can't thank you enough, and appreciate you guys having us on your podcast. I mean, that's really awesome of you guys.
No. Well, we like to help out. I mean, we look at it like this: like if you can come back and message us, and you sound intrigued about it, then cool. But then if you are like a couple people we've messaged, and
they've kind of essentially blown us off,
yeah.
For lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not cool.
Then yeah, well, we take note of it very. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So Don, like I tell everybody, since you sound like a cool guy, you're more than welcome to add us on Facebook to keep in touch, and everything else. And maybe down the road, maybe when the full game is actually out and stuff, we can maybe talk about what you learned and what
we've learned and what we thought about it.
That way it'll help
give some feedback.
And that way maybe we can learn if you're going to do a season 2 or start something different.
That would be great. Yeah, I would really like to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and Don, you're more than welcome to always come back to our podcast, even if you think we need to know something about the game or whatever.
Or to even do like another episode with us on like one of our other topics that we talk about.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I mean, absolutely. You guys have my contact info, so anytime you want to do something, I'm down for that, definitely.
Yeah, Tessa's giving the 2 thumbs up, shaking her head like, oh yeah. Yeah, so she's enjoying this. But, so Don, one more time for listeners, where can people find Enyx Studio and you? If they want
we're on. Absolutely. We have our website, which is www.enyxstudios.com, and Enyx is spelled ENYX. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, and we do have a YouTube channel that we're going to be adding new videos to. So those are the places that you can connect with us. On our website, we have a contact form if you want to email us with questions or just want to, show some support or just anything. You can email us from there.
Nice. Yeah. And once again, Don, thank you very much. And how we always end this episode, Don, is on the count of 3. We usually say, "Stay scary." So
okay.
Let's end this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. On the count of 3, we'll say, "Stay scary." Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Stay scary.